Good afternoon. Welcome to the May 8th regular meeting of Everett Public Schools Board of Directors. This evening we have a full house and excited for all the students here tonight. We're going to begin the evening or the afternoon with the Jackson High School Jazz Band 1 under the direction of Leslie Moffitt.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Cohn, for inviting us to be here this evening. Our jazz band just performed at Jazz Alley a couple weeks ago, and so we're playing just a few tunes that we did from there. This is the top jazz band at our school. We have 3 auditioned at jazz bands that meet every day at 6:30 in the morning. So this group is, they play a lot. They go out and do a lot of extra stuff too. They're going to be performing at Disneyland in just a couple of weeks and going into the Disney recording studios where they'll do a 90-minute recording session. And we're taking 200 other band kids plus another 100 in the orchestra and the like and choir to go down and be a part of that. So this music department is very active in what we do. You just heard solos from Joe on tenor and Devin back there on trumpet on that tune. And what's cool about jazz is when they're playing their solos, they're improvising. So there's a chord structure. They're given a framework, if you will. Got to make it so they know a little bit about here's what you need to work within, and then from there they use their creativity and in real time to create a solo that's different every time, but still falls within the chord structure and the like. So that's real higher level learning, and it's really exciting because they can really show more of themselves through their music. The next tune we're going to do is called Love for Sale. Thank you. I don't have the right kind of glasses available to see. Love for Sale. And you're going to hear from Adam on the alto, Joe again on tenor, and DJ does some pretty cool stuff back here on the drums. And Michael. Michael has a solo too. I'm so sorry, Michael. Michael's going to do a trumpet solo. I'm not going to dive back there with the microphone, so go ahead and play out because I would have to jump through the trombones and that's dangerous. Okay? Why don't you carry on? you. We're going to close our portion of the program, and then we will sneak out as quietly as possible so we don't disturb your meeting. But we're going to do a tune that features a vocalist. We've got a young lady back there who's got a lot of sass, and so she's perfect for this tune. It's called Orange Colored Sky. Hannah Molman is one of our seniors, and she's going to sing it. Seniors, can you guys all wave? These guys our seniors have put in a lot of years to do this, and I just want to acknowledge, especially our seniors. So give us a big wave, seniors. Yeah, lots of years in that. So please, thank you again for the invitation, and enjoy Orange Colored Sky.
One, two, three. I was walking along, minding my business, when out of an orange-colored sky, flash, bam, alakazam, wonderful, you came by. I was humming a tune, drinking in sunshine, when out of an orange-colored view, flash, bam, alakazam, I gotta look at you. One look and I yell timber, watch out for flying glass, 'cause the ceiling fell in and the bottom fell out. I went into a spin and I started to shout up and hit, this is it, I see it. I was walking along, minding my business, when love came and hit me in the eye. Flash, bam, alakazam, I've been orange-colored sky. Well, one look and I yell timber, watch out for flying glass, 'cause the ceiling fell in and the bottom fell out. I went into a spin and I started to shout up and hit, this is it, I see it. I was walking along, minding my business, when love came and hit me in the eye. Flash, bam, alakazam, I've been orange-colored, purple striped, pretty pink polka dot sky. Flash, bam, alakazam, and goodbye.
Well, thank you very, very much. We appreciate this. Thank you.
Leslie?
You came so far, we're wondering if maybe you might have one more up your sleeve that you could share.
We don't this evening. Our other drummer's not here.
Okay.
And he has so we'll come back.
Okay. We'll invite you back. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming and joining us here tonight. We truly appreciate it for filling this boardroom with music, lively music. And with that, we'll transition back to our meeting, and could you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
President Mason?
Present.
Vice President Andrews?
Present.
Director Lassane?
Director Mitchell, Director Wenta,
Present.
Student Representative Parikh,
Present.
Student Representative Pollock.
Thank you. Our first order of business tonight is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Cohn, may you please introduce tonight's lengthy agenda?
I'd be delighted to. Consistent with the plans established at your 2017 Summer Planning Workshop, tonight's agenda contains several items related to both the district's strategic plan and the board's annual goals. There is a segment for routine business. There's a segment tonight for board comments, a segment for the superintendent's report, one for strategic progress reporting, a segment for information items, one for unfinished business, and a segment for upcoming agenda items. The following changes have been made since the agenda was published to you. Item 8.1, the superintendent's report will be updated during the meeting as is customary for regular meetings. Item 11.1, associated student body budgets for 2018-19 were updated because two of the student presentations needed minor edits to a couple of their slides. In all other respects, the agenda is as it was published to you. The board may elect, of course, to change the order of business by a majority vote of the members. And note, please, that this is not the point of your agenda to request items be removed from the consent agenda. So we ask your approval of the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended? So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Andrews and seconded by Director Wenta. Is there any discussion regarding tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries. The agenda is adopted. Which takes us to section 5.0, which is recognitions. In lieu of recognitions tonight, we had the honor of having the Jackson High School Jazz Band come in and play, which was a sort of recognition for us. So we will move on to section 6.0, public comment. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the public in its meetings. Dr. Cohn, are there any requests for public comment this evening?
Yes, there are.
On behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome you to this meeting. The school board meetings are designed to conduct district business in public. We welcome ideas and opinions presented in that same spirit. I would like to share with you how this portion of the meeting is conducted. First, the superintendent will call you to the podium to speak in the order which you signed up tonight. Each speaker has 3 minutes. All comments are recorded, which will be made available for future viewing by the board and the public. The public comments part of the agenda is for board to listen to what you have to say. This is not for debate or discussion. Board members do not respond to individual comments. Dr. Cohn, please introduce tonight's speakers.
I'd be happy to. The speakers this evening would like to speak with you about the elementary school boundary revision proposal presented to the superintendent by the committee charged with developing that recommendation. I'm going to call first Brian Shin to the lectern. Brian's a resident of the district, a parent or guardian of a student enrolled at Mill Creek Elementary School. The green light that you will see momentarily on the lectern signifies the start of your 3 minutes. The yellow light is a 30-second warning, and the red signifies the expiration of the 3 minutes.
Go now. Okay. Hello, everyone. First, I want to recognize the fact that all of you have important jobs to do, and I'm grateful to have you as board of directors. My name is Brian. I'm a parent of 3 beautiful children who attend Mill Creek Elementary in Mill Creek. My wife and I moved from Shoreline to Mill Creek last year so that my kids would receive better education in a better neighborhood. Couldn't be happier to see Samuel, Hannah, and Daniel make new friends at Mill Creek Elementary with kind help from the school staff and teachers. Everyone in the community is so involved. We're doing everything they can to help young kids to learn and grow. Whereas the mission statement says, inspiring, educating, preparing each student to achieve high standards. And that's why I'm here today, doing everything I can to help my kids stay at Mill Creek Elementary. There was a recent update to the boundary changes, which would affect my neighborhood called North Point in Mill Creek. in the name of, or the spirit of, balancing students for the free reduced lunch program, my kids and many other kids in my neighborhood would be forced to move to Penny Creek Elementary from Mill Creek. I respect that the Boundary Committee has a very tough job to do here, but you have to take into consideration that this change impacts the lives of young kids. And you have to do everything you can to minimize impact to each student so that they are inspired and prepared to achieve high standards. The more I think about this change, the more questions I have than answers, to be honest with you. What's the ultimate outcome of this change? Are we enhancing the lives of everyone involved in the proposed change? Or is it more about making the numbers look better on paper? I just ask humbly that you let my kids stay where they are. I ask that you consider all the feedback from community members you've been getting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shin, for sharing your thoughts.
The second speaker this evening is Sarah, I believe it's pronounced
It's actually just
all right, Sarah, again, the green light will signify the start of your 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah, and I am the mother of 3 children, one who also attends Mill Creek Elementary. I'm here to speak regarding the proposed boundary lines for Mill Creek Elementary in 2019. It is my belief that the Elementary Boundary Committee did not meet their stated goals and guiding principles when drawing out the boundary lines for area number 4. At the February public forums, the boundary lines for Mill Creek Elementary included my neighborhood of North Point. It shows that the cutoff occurred at Silvercrest Drive and 25th Avenue, and the residents within this pocket would move to Penny Creek Elementary. North Point was not affected. It's my understanding that the affected residents in this area then attended the February public forums and voiced their opinions, which resulted in the boundary lines being redrawn to include them and move North Point out of Mill Creek Elementary. The committee's final recommendation in regards to area number 4 state that, quote, moved the newer subdivisions to Penny Creek, allowing the older subdivisions to continue to attend Mill Creek. However, this goal to keep older subdivisions within a school boundary was never stated as an actual committee goal, nor was it stated as a guiding principle. The following are a few of the goals and guiding principles taken from the committee's own meeting minutes. Boundary changes should only be implemented after appropriate input and discussions with affected parties and careful consideration of alternative solutions. I should mention that this particular guiding principle was required, quote, no exceptions taken. The residents residing in the pocket that the committee first proposed to move had the opportunity to voice their opinions at the February public forums. The residents of North Point were never given that same opportunity. During the public forums, North Point showed as being within the boundary of Mill Creek Elementary, and we were stunned when the final recommendations showed us outside of the boundary lines. The committee did not reach out to North Point for input. Natural or man-made barriers to safe and efficient routes should be taken into consideration. Safe walking routes for all schools, goal whenever possible. Those that walk to school now should be able to walk to school with the proposed boundary changes. North Point children currently walk half a mile to and from Mill Creek Elementary. Penny Creek is just under a mile away. However, to walk to Penny Creek, these children would walk along a road riddled with heavy traffic, moving at speeds upwards of 45 to 50 miles per hour. They'd also need to navigate crossing a large signalized intersection with 5 lanes of traffic. Even if the children of our neighborhood were bused to Penny Creek, in the event that they participated in any on-site after-school activities, they would then need to walk this route home. Additionally, I don't believe the committee took into consideration natural or man-made barriers when redrawing the boundary map to exclude North Point. Their prior proposal, which included my neighborhood, showed the boundary lines. I'm going to actually skip kind of towards the end because I know I'm losing time here, but I respectfully ask that the school board, when presented with the committee's final recommendations, closely examine area number 4's boundary lines as they were drawn at February's public forums, and consider whether the committee truly met their goals and guidelines when they redrew the boundary map to exclude North Point from Mill Creek Elementary. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming this evening and sharing your thoughts. This takes us to section 7.0, the consent agenda. Dr. Cohn, would you please introduce tonight's consent agenda?
The board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items. These include, for example, meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, and recurring contracts. Sometimes the consent agenda will include items that occur less frequently, but are of a routine business nature. The less frequently occurring consent agenda items are usually reviewed by the board in its Friday report, 1 or more weeks before the board meeting when those items are scheduled to appear on the consent agenda. This gives directors time to ask staff questions about those items or to consider a discussion about the policy implications of those items. If a consent agenda item is removed by the concurrence of 2 directors, then that item is placed in new business, and the remaining items are automatically renumbered by our meeting system. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office has received no questions or comments regarding any of these items. Therefore, the consent agenda is presented as published, and we ask your approval thereof.
Thank you. A motion to adopt the consent agenda is in order.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved by Director Wenta and seconded by Director Andrews. Do any of the directors wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and place it in new business? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Move to Section 8.0, Board Comments. This is a time where directors and student representatives have an opportunity to share information or comments about their activities as they relate to the district. And since I have no one to my right this evening, I'm going to start to my left with our student representative, Parikh.
Comments tonight.
Director Wenta.
Thank you, President Mason. I have one report, and that was a meeting that took place at North Middle School with 15 to 20 teachers and the principal out there. We have had conversation regarding when North Middle School is complete, the possibility of renaming that, and we've tested that with 25 to 35 people in the community as well as these teachers. What we were looking for was just a response to see if this was a good idea or not, if it's something that we want to continue to pursue or not. And I would characterize the conversation as tepid endorsement. I think it's one of those ideas that you have to let ferment a bit before you actually adopt it wholeheartedly. I think there's a couple things that did come up that was interesting. Certainly there was great pride in the teaching corps at North Middle School, and they're very proud of what's been taking place there. And I see former Principal Shepard in the audience here. But we talked about what Everett will look like in the next 25 years. And what is the role of North Middle School as we look at the redevelopment of the North Everett neighborhoods in that area? We also talked about history of the name, which I did not know, but certainly learned from a number of folks that North Middle School is the 3rd name that has been used for that school. It originally was North Junior High, followed by George Washington Carver, followed by North Middle School. And so I think there is reason to continue to pursue this. I think it needs to be an active conversation. However, it's with the understanding that it is emotionally laden. It is one of those things that, quite frankly, people have an attachment to a name, and I get that. There was not a unanimous consensus. However, I think there was enough endorsement to move forward with the idea. So that was one meeting. And then just a quick aside, congratulations to the Jackson High School robotics team. How I learned of their victory at the world level is my neighbor in the south part of the county. He is in a robotics advisor for Glacier Peak. And he felt the need to run over and tell me, he said, Ted, you need to know what is happening at Jackson High School and the level that they are competing at. This is really a big, big deal. And so I want to give congratulations to that.
Thank you very much for sharing all that. Director Andrews.
I visited Jackson High School. I went up to watch the students when they marched in support of gun control. I was interested to see that. And during that little walk, we followed the students out to Heatherwood. And I have been to Jackson recently, but had not walked that part of the school. So I saw the portables, which are actually very nice looking. And so Darcy Walker was there, and he explained to me the amenities and improvements we make to them to make them really habitable facilities. But they certainly have filled up the grounds at Jackson High. And although this is not directly school related, I also attended the Cocoon House Butterfly graduation, which was inspiring. And then a couple days after, the Children's Museum fundraising breakfast, which again is an amazing place, and it's just a real joy to see the partnerships or relationships we have with other organizations that help support our students as well. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we had a couple special meetings this past month. In April, we only have one regular scheduled meeting, but we often add several different meetings to delve into a particular topic. And this past month, we spent some time talking about capital planning after the failure of our bond in February 18 that was proposed to add a new high school to our district and a couple other projects throughout. And the board is now working to determine how to handle the student growth that continues at Jackson High School. I'm certain that Dr. Cohn's going to mention it in his report, but we have three, or not, I will. We have 3 upcoming engagement sessions at each of the high school, and we encourage parents and staff and students to come voice their opinion and help us understand a direction forward as we look at the different options. So, and those are posted on the website if you're interested in specific dates and times. We also have had the opportunity to sit down with our Equity and Access Advisory Council, which is always one of our really robust and wonderful special meetings that we get to do each year and sort of understand the work as we approach the diversity and celebrate it throughout our district. So some really fun and good, interesting meetings in the month of April. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cohn for the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you very, very much. And we're going to go ahead and shift the screen a little bit, and I'm going to start you out with a very fun slide. Don't let anybody ever tell you that Garfield Elementary students don't take the SBA seriously. Principal Bean shared with us a photograph of a student whose first name is Diego, who proudly displays his SBA commitment through what I think is best described as a neatly designed buzz cut. I thought you'd enjoy this. I want you to know that we had a historic win recently. Diesel equipment technology became a state skills USA competition category in 1965. Yes, I was 10 years old then. Throughout those 53 years, male students walked away with first place awards. In this year's state diesel competition, senior Mackenzie Boudreau became the first female to take first place. Her impressive skills earned her a slot at the National Skills USA competition in June in Louisville, Kentucky. She also earned a $10,000 scholarship to attend Universal Technical Institute. She's described as a non-traditional student who switched to the online high school program at Sequoia so she could finish the last year of her graduation requirements and still take sections at Snow Isle before she graduated in June. So we want to congratulate Mackenzie on what is, in fact, a historic first. So we wanted you to know that. We wanted to also congratulate Jackson High's robotics team. Last month, as Director Wenta noted, more than 91,000 students on 3,660 teams from 27 countries competed in the first World Championships in Houston, Texas. Jackson High School's Jack in the Bot robotics team came away with a really impressive second place in the world, like the whole world. We want to commend these students for their hard work, and we want to thank many community partners for their support in helping make this remarkable accomplishment possible. Also want you to have an opportunity to recognize Forest View Elementary's fifth grade Rowan Evans. He takes his safety patrol duty very seriously. He's one of 10 students from across the state to be selected to the 2018 AAA Patrol Hall of Fame. Safety Patrol program, you're going to like this next part. The Safety Patrol program was born in 1924 at Garfield Elementary School in Everett. The patrol was organized by Everett Police and Garfield Principal Grover Love after 2 girls were injured by an automobile. Within 2 years, the program was in all of our Everett schools, and by 1929, it had been adopted in Seattle as well. Of course, you know the rest of the story. It's spread across the country, and then later on, it was opened up to girls. It did not include girls when it started out. So today, AAA partners with local agencies to bring this program to elementary schools across our state. Jackson High School's Construction Industry Roundtable team are pictured here along with 3 mentors from LMN Architects. They earned a 2nd place in the National Construction Industry Roundtable competition held in Washington, D.C. Their project is called Releasing the Dragon, and it was a very creative revitalization of the International District in Seattle. We want to congratulate them. Siegel Company, which is made up of students from all of our high schools who attend the ROTC program at Everett High School, competed in the Northwest NJROTC Drill Academic and Athletic Championships at Curtis High School in University Place. In addition to earning an overall drill state title, you got to put those words in the correct order, Siegel Company placed 1st in unarmed regulation, 2nd place in armed regulation, armed exhibition, and color guard, and 3rd place in academics and in personnel inspection. The Everett High Navy JROTC program includes, of course, cadets from across the district, and they travel all over the state to demonstrate their skills. They've had really an incredible year. This is a slide that contains some pictures where last week at Safeco Field they were invited to present the colors for the opening of the Mariners Oakland game. The color guard cadets who participated at the game were students who've been practicing for this type of an activity for some time. They've been invited to attend in this role other Mariner games, and the Sounders have scheduled cadets for 4 games as well. We also expect our color guard to present the colors when we dedicate the new Memorial Stadium baseball field on June 15th, and you're, of course, all invited for that. Other good news, our Everett and Jackson DECA students participated in the International Career Development Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. It was the... What? Did I go ahead one slide? My happy fingers are just moving too fast. They had a tremendous year. At Everett High School, one of the students was recognized as a Washington State finalist. 3 students from the EHS store were recertified as Gold Award recipients. 5 Everett students were recognized as emerging leaders, 1 for his service as a 2017-18 state officer. From Jackson High, 3 students placed in the top 5 in the category of Financial Literacy Program. Director Andrews, Financial Literacy Program, Promotion Project, and 1 student took 2nd overall in Financial Consulting. By the way, they're going to be presenting at the State DECA banquet, and if you'd like to go to that, you're more than welcome to attend with me. Just let me know. Avid students visited as part of a commercial airplane design project from Cascade High School. The Boeing Company, that was a terrible sentence. Let me do that over again. As part of their commercial airline design project, Cascade High School avid sophomores visited the Boeing Company. They worked one-on-one with engineers and mechanics, and they competed in engineering challenges. They toured Boeing's facilities, which I know all of you have done with us, and I'm sure they created memories that will last a lifetime. If you've never been to the Boeing plant and toured that facility, it is a remarkable experience, and we suggest that you do that. Last month, the CTE department got together with Snohomish County Labor Council to host an all-day trade-up event at Cascade High School. It was designed to introduce students, career specialists, and counselors to regional careers that are in high demand, especially careers in trades. Over 350 students from our high schools attended. Small groups rotated through hands-on demonstration stations hosted by Community Transit, by Everett Fire Department, by Snohomish County PUD, by the Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee, by Northwest Construction, by the Laborers Apprentice, there's more, by Waste Management, by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, by Ready Mix, by the Cement Masons Union, and by the Silver Lake Water Districts. Students got to operate CNC equipment, they got to lay concrete, they got to operate a jackhammer. I think I saw one of them on a backhoe, swinging the bucket back and forth. It was, I think there's a picture down there, that's right. So the trade-up events and future trade-up events and similar events for students are being planned by our crews. Last month, Jackson High School hosted a wide variety of first responders from across the county. You'll see, I think, in here folks from the State Patrol, from the Sheriff's Office, from a number of municipalities, police officers, groups. They toured the school with an eye toward how to make the school safe and how you would respond to an incident in a facility as large and as populated as Jackson High School. I think probably you all are somewhat aware, but I want to make sure that we take a moment and dwell on the 20 years of partnership between the Everett Public Schools Foundation and the district. The foundation has supported the arts in our schools and sponsored amazing art shows. We want to congratulate. Cascade High School keeps popping up in my report. Kathy's over there going like this. we want to recognize Andrew Culver. His artwork entitled Kenny was selected by the superintendent. That's why it's called the Superintendent's Choice Award. He was paid $200 for his artwork. The foundation frames it, and then it's permanently on display in the Community Resource Center with the previous 20 years of selections that you can see if you walk the halls here at the Community Resource Center. Right now, the middle school art show is underway. The reception is next week. It's May 14, and the elementary art show begins May 23. This week is Teacher Appreciation Week. We want to take just a moment to thank our 1,259 certificated staff members for their remarkable work each and every day to support quality instruction and student learning and an absolutely remarkable program in Everett Public Schools. Schools across the district are finding ways to show their appreciation this week. PTSAs are deeply involved, as you might imagine. The images on the slide reflect Hawthorne and Jackson Elementary Schools and Eisenhower Middle School's work to honor our teachers. I just want to take a moment on behalf of all of us and thank all of our certificated staff in the district and note that if you have time to stop at a school and join in the celebration, I invite you to do so. The Elementary Boundary Committee, as you heard this evening, has concluded its work. It submitted a recommendation to the superintendent for action. Families throughout the district were notified of the group's work, its deliberations, and the various meetings. Right now, having received that report, we placed it online, and we are soliciting input on the recommendation from the community until the 25th of May. To date, we've received 119 responses from community members, so that you have a sense of the progress. The group published the fact that it was doing the work. They invited community members in to do the work. They held a number of meetings for folks to comment. They received those comments. They adjusted their thinking as a result, ultimately then produced that recommendation to the superintendent. Now, it's my job, after it's out there for a while, to get together with the cabinet and review all the input we receive and see whether or not I'll make any adjustments at all in the recommendation that I send to you. Then it's your turn to work with it, determine whether you'd like any additional process before you make a decision. I want to make sure that you're assured and that anybody else who's listening or was participating in or has noted the process that we'll carefully consider all of the input, which we all know doesn't mean that we do what people ask us to do, because sometimes they ask us to do opposing things. So you'll get a recommendation here fairly shortly, and then you'll be able to process it and make a decision on how we'll adjust the boundaries when we open the 18th elementary school. You have some community conversations on high school enrollment growth schedule. We've got 3 scheduled this month, and they're designed to listen to community input. Tonight, we're going to spend some time on those, the design, so that you can tell us if you want some adjustments in the design. They're going to be May 15 at Cascade High School, May 17 at Everett High School, and May 29 at Jackson High School. You'll use that input essentially once we formulate it and give you a recommendation to tell us what to do next. So there's a variety of options that you could take. You specifically wanted this to be a very wide net to gather all kinds of ideas, whether we've heard them in the past or not. We'll sift and then bring you a suggestion, and you'll tell us what to do next. That doesn't mean what to implement. That means what to do next in terms of gathering further public comment on a particular priority. We want you to know that safety and security upgrade bids were received for Mill Creek and Cedarwood Elementary Schools. The low bids are being evaluated by the architect and district staff. The good news is that the bids were within the architect's estimate. They are not what we estimated when we put the capital levy out. They're looking at about $500,000 apiece. The Silver Firs and Penny Creek safety and security upgrades bid will bid Thursday, May 10, and the upgrades at those 4 schools include new main entries, a remodel for office interiors, and installation of ornamental fencing between the main buildings and gym to secure the entrance to schools. I know if if Tracy were here, if Director Mister were here, she would want to speak to this. She called me last night. She visited her high school and some of the campuses in California where she graduated and saw a variety of different types of ornamental fencing. Was very excited about some of the things that she saw. She texted me before we started the meeting. She's hung up at Providence with something that she's involved in. She doesn't know when she'll get here, but I want to make sure you know she wanted to comment on this. So it may turn up in a later agenda item. Here's a quick report on the schools I visited during the past month. Several of them, for example, North, Cascade, Everett, and Jackson, were multiple visits for events like the Latinx Conversations, the trade-up event, baseball, on-time graduation, boys soccer, ASB officer meetings, things of that nature. It was a busy month, even though I didn't hit as many schools as I normally do. I was at several of them multiple times. That's the superintendent's report, and I'll just note that I'm reclaiming some time from a couple of prior meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. May is a busy month here in the district, and a lot of celebrations as the school year winds down. So thank you for taking the time to share all that information. We now move to section 10.0, strategic progress monitoring. And tonight we do not have any strategic monitoring report scheduled because we have our ASB budget presentations, which we are very much looking forward to. And I'm going to call Ruth Floyd up to introduce, but I also just want to say, I know some of you are sitting out there and I can see a lot of squirming in the seats. You might be a little nervous, but just remember, we actually are all parents here, sitting up here. And so maybe think of it as just practicing to your mom and dad or something. And relax and have fun with it, because we really do truly look forward to this. Oh, maybe that's how about your friends? I don't know, sorry. Go ahead, Ruth.
All right, thank you. We have students from all 4 of our high schools here today to present their ASB budgets. Attached to your agenda item is the full ASB budget that consolidates 5 middle schools and 4 high schools. They're developed by student leaders under the guidance of their respective ASB advisors, and their preliminary plans pending your review, and should any revision be necessary, the students have time to do that before school ends for the summer. The final ASB budget as a whole is scheduled to be adopted with the other funds in July. I'd like to thank the students and their advisors for their diligent work in putting these presentations together. I think you'll agree their work is top-notch. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Plucker, who will introduce Everett High School student presenters.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing all of that exciting news to share earlier. And I'm pleased to be able to introduce these wonderful students tonight because our ASB advisor, Shelley Waller, is doing something exciting. She's spent the last 3 days at the Microsoft Build event, and she'll be bringing back all that knowledge to share with our high school. Would like to introduce first our current sitting ASB president, Gabe Maggio. He's joined by Shedrick Afable, who is our current sitting treasurer and will be returning next year as an incumbent treasurer. And next year's ASB president, Holly Kusler. Thank you very much.
So today we'll be presenting our proposed ASB budget for the 2018-19 school year. First, we will be covering the financial aspect of our budget presentation, looking at revenues, expenditures, as well as fund balance. Then we'll get into the ASB budget process and how we formulated our final budget. Finally, we will be covering our major fundraising events, clubs, activities, community service projects, and then points of pride.
So before I get into this, I would like to state that many of the numbers that you will see will be very consistent, and in order to avoid redundancy, I would like to focus mainly on the differences between years in the slides to come. So first we'll look at the revenues for this year. One thing to note is that general student body revenues are down. This is because a move of a student store away from ASB has happened, so their revenues are no longer included within our budget. That's because they are a co-curricular sort of implement. Additionally, you can see the athletics is up. This is because we had tried to build in more capacity for athletics to spend on things like uniforms, but in order to balance out this increased capacity, we had to up their revenue. In terms of expenditures, the major differences, again, are general student body. Again, student store is no longer included within the ASB budget, so their expenditures as well are cut out. Additionally, athletics, as you can see, are actually down. And the reason for this is because that extra capacity to spend for uniforms is actually happening within a 5-year cycle. So all of that expenditures is not happening within solely the 2018 to 2019 school year. Besides that, most things are consistent. This is the visual breakdown of the revenues and expenditures. As you can see, athletics and clubs is something that we try to balance to make it equitable, and the balance here is very, very even, very clear. In terms of beginning fund balance for the years, most things have kept consistent. One major thing is general student body. The reason why that is so low is because we have been doing a better job of spending down our budget and investing more into the student body. So that's why that is so low, but everything else is fairly consistent. In terms of actual mid-year fund balance, this similar patterns are seen as from the last slide. The reason why the student body is so low is because we were spending down our budget. But the reason why there are so many negatives in 2017 to 2018 actual is because some of our major revenue streams, such as maybe ASB cards, hit the budget at the end of the year. So while we are spending down, that money has not gone in to kind of counter that until the end of the year. Now I'll talk about the budget development process. As usual, in order to allocate funds fairly, all ASB groups submit a proposed budget. They basically tell us what they intend to spend next year, and we take this into consideration, and then with a mind of equity and trying to fulfill their requests as much as possible, develop a fund balance, trying to keep the balance between clubs and athletics. So for the 2018 and 19 year, ASB officers had allocated $26,000 to athletics and $21,400 to clubs. Now again, this difference can be explained by that extra capacity that we're building in for athletics so they can buy new uniforms. Besides that, it's fairly reasonable. Now in terms of the general ASB revenue, most things have been kept consistent. One thing to note is dances for the 2018-2019 year. The reason for these differences is threefold. Firstly, we have updated our policy so that you can no longer buy tickets at the door. Secondly, you can no longer buy dance tickets if you have any outstanding fines on your ASB account. That's because we're trying to incentivize people to actually pay it off. And then thirdly, TOLO revenues, which is a big stream, doesn't go to us. It goes directly to the sophomore class because they're the ones who put it on. Lastly, other, you can see, is down because student store revenue would count in that other. And as of right now, this other counts only for the expected parking revenue or parking violation revenue. Now on to the ASB Snapshot.
Now we're moving on to our ASB Snapshot, where we get to show you how we use the money that flows into our ASB funds to make the students' experience more positive at Everett High School. Our first are our major fundraising events. Our ASB cards bring in about $30,000 of revenue for our ASB funding. Our PTA auction usually brings in anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 in revenue. This year we actually brought in $40,000. Our homecoming dance is a great source of revenue because we're able to generate money from ticket sales and from concessions at the actual dance. And our homecoming tailgate is a great way for our ASB clubs to showcase what they're doing and raise money for their own benefit.
So at Everett High School, we have a multitude of club events and activities, so I'd love to spotlight a few of those for you guys. First off, we have our annual Battle of the Books competition, which is held in our library by our wonderful librarian, Miss Payne. Also, we have our annual Martin Luther King Assembly, and this year, International Student Organization planned and executed that, and the assembly included cultural poems, songs, and dances. Furthermore, this year we have a brand new cycling club which holds weekly classes, and one of our English teachers, Mrs. Adams, actually went out and got a license and certificate to become an official cycling class teacher.
We also have a variety of community service projects at Everett High, our biggest being our food drive, which is held at the end of November. And this year we were able to support about 52 families, but because we got our $15,000 grant from Safeway and Albertsons, we were able to support more families than we normally are able to. Our blood drive happens around middle of February, and this year it actually happened right after the Florida shooting, so we were able to donate all of our blood through BloodWorks to Florida. So that was a great way for us to kind of contribute to our national community. We also have our AAU youth basketball game, which highlights our We Are Everett campaign, which Gabe will talk about.
As for points of pride, we have a bunch and not a lot of time, so I'll only cover a few. But so this year was the grand opening of our thrift store, the Vintage Seagull, which is student run, and we have a bunch of donation bins set up around our school so people can donate their spirit gear and it can be reused. Also this year, we tried to promote our We Are Everett philosophy, and so this was a big school and community-wide unification project. In order to push this, we gave out free We Are Everett t-shirts to ASB cardholders. We also held community events such as our AAU Youth Basketball Night and our Everett High Baseball Little League Night. Furthermore, we implemented ASB discounts at local businesses. So if you were an ASB card holder, you got discounts at businesses such as Ray's Drive-In, Major League Pizza, and Espresso Avenue.
Looking towards the future, we're very optimistic for what ASB is going to be able to accomplish next year. Our first order of business is to make the fund request process for club advisors and for club presidents more clear for them to request money from ASB. We also want to create an easier way for students to voice their opinion to ASB officers, so we actually opened up our office and our cafeteria for ASB suggestions, so students can come during first lunch, second lunch, or after school to talk to ASB officers about their suggestions for the future. We also want to make our cafeteria a place of more communication and interaction with other students, so we want to move to a roundtable mode of operation rather than rectangular to increase student interaction. Questions?
So I think you're at the point where you get to ask them questions. I just want to make a couple of quick comments. One, I get to have time with these young people 2, 3, 4 times a year, depending on schedules. Typically, it's a breakfast meeting, and I will tell you that the amount of time that they have been working on and trying to figure out how to continually improve climate, a sense of belonging, the school environment is really commendable. I want to say that's the case at all of our schools. The students at Everett have spent a fair amount of time talking with me about that. You know, I think from some of our conversations that we're pretty careful about keeping ASB expenditures focused on associated student body activities. And the students have been working very hard to spend down balances that have climbed over the past several years. In some cases, they've asked to spend on things that I think should be district expenses. And I've said, no, we'll go do that if it's that important to you. And we'll adjust some of our spending priorities. There are some times when we sort of make a bit of an exception or we provide some additional latitude. And re-outfitting the cafeteria, I think, is one of those that they've asked to do. And while it's not necessarily something we need to do, that we could do, it makes good sense for the work that they're doing, so we're providing them as much latitude as we can. And frankly, we work closely with the auditors to try to make sure that we don't stumble over, any of the regulations that they use when they go back and look at the previous year's expenditures. So in case you had any questions about that, I wanted to make sure that we answered them right out of the gate.
Okay, thank you. Directors, do you have any questions regarding the Everett High ASB budget?
Questions and a couple comments. Thank you for a great presentation. I appreciate seeing the fund balance come down. That, as Dr. Cohn said, that has been an area of, I think consternation would be too strong of a term, but certainly something that we've looked at over the past few years, and so I appreciate that. I'm always curious about the enforcement of parking violations, because that's always a line item that comes up, but no one enforces it, and I would say that's a consistent theme across the high schools, and so want to learn a little bit more about that. And then an observation, sometimes you can't look at these budgets just as an ASB budget, because you want to know what the parent support, i.e. PTA, looks like. And so it'd be interesting if you looked at the combined revenue of those funds, because it really would kind of round out how much money is being allocated to different schools. So, but I can't wait to hear the parking violation enforcement.
Yeah, so we've had a bunch of different ideas on how we could further enforce that. Right now, we have our security guards go around and ticket people. We have a few illegal spots in our parking lot, but it's really confusing because they're just dashed white lines. But kids kind of get confused when to park there and when not. So right now we have a system where if you get fined, it's $40 and it goes up to $50 the second time, then $60 the third. And right now we're actually working on a system where they can work those fines off, because we don't really need that source of revenue. It's not a necessity for our overall revenue, but we're working on it so kids can go in and help teachers after school, or go help the librarian put books away in order to work off those fines.
And the enforcement of that is?
And the enforcement, we talked about possibly having leadership students go out into the parking lot during sixth period and enforce it once a week, or however often it needs to be. But as of right now, we've relied solely on the security guards to do that. And so they can't do it every day, but they'll go out when the weather's nice usually.
Which is not often.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation, very polished. Congratulations. I was very impressed with your explanation of the budget variances. Excuse me. Shows a real understanding of the budget and the budgeting process. So great job. And I had some of the, those were some of my questions and you answered them. So I don't even have to ask them now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have a question though. You mentioned PTA auction revenues. Do those are not included in your projected revenues, correct?
No.
So how do those?
They're not an ASB revenue, actually.
Right.
They're from the foundation to PTA. They don't. They're
Ruth, could you come up to the lectern, please?
The auction money doesn't go to the ASB. It's thought of as their revenue, but it goes to the foundation, and they help provide that money.
So Blue and Gold, different groups like that can raise funds. Then they choose how much to give to the ASB. That becomes ASB revenue.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I probably should have known that. Sure. Love the pictures of the thrift store. Looks like you got some creative juices flowing there. That looks very cool. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit more about your cycling class. It sounds very interesting.
So when they remodeled our gym on the second floor, there's like a whole cycling classroom with mirrors so you can look at yourself dying on a bicycle. So that started up this year. They hold it every Tuesday. I haven't been able to go yet because I had baseball, but I'm looking forward to it. I know the first class, they had 10, 15 kids show up. So, I mean, Mrs. Adams is really committed, and she was the old Kamiak leadership advisor. So this is kind of right down her alley. So she's really advocating for it, and I know a lot of kids are talking about it. So I think it's going to be really cool in the next few years.
Thank you.
I love that.
Go for it. Yeah.
Thank you for explaining. I have one quick question. Does the thrift store make money for you? I didn't.
Yes, not a lot, but they do.
Yeah.
Everything in the thrift store is $5 or under.
Okay.
So
it's a great idea.
Yeah,
I love
it's
that.
super
Very
cool.
creative.
So
yeah.
we have
and a good
like this
recycle.
Yeah,
program.
we have this old room where there's a bunch of leftover props and leftover just relics from like the 80s and stuff that we've been selling. Not
It sounds like my house.
So we've been able to pull those out. So we clean at the same time. We also sell them. So it's been a really good system. It's super efficient. So
Yeah. Great. Well, we'll hold with more questions so that we can listen to the other presentations. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Great presentation.
All right, next up we have Jackson High School.
Good afternoon, almost evening. I'm glad to learn that I'm officially a relic since I'm from the 80s. It's refreshing. I'd like to formally introduce myself because I'm obviously a new face. You're used to seeing Senor Alan Briggs representing Jackson High School, but he is stepping into a different role next year. So I have the distinct honor of being Jackson High School's new ASB Advisor and Activities Coordinator. My name is Jason Gaddick. I've been at Jackson for 11 years, and this is something I've always wanted. So I'm honored to introduce to you our four presenters tonight. We have our current ASB President, Gabby Hofer. We have our incoming ASB President, Michaela Hubbard. Our current Treasurer, Pranav Shaker, and our incoming Treasurer, Kenna O'Brien. And so here they are.
So our objective for today is obviously to present to you the board for our approval of our next year's ASB budget. We're going to be going over our overall ASB budget for next year, our budget development, and a snapshot of what we do for the community and around our school.
I'm going to have you move just a little closer to the mic when you're presenting. Whoever is presenting, step up a little bit. Yeah, thank you.
So next
just
we're going to be
so
talking about, we're going to be talking about our 2018-19 ASB budget. We'll be going over revenues, expenditures, a breakdown of both of these, and then a fund balance comparison. So starting with our revenues for our 2016-17 actual school year, we started with $750,000. Our total revenue was around $761, bringing our total available resources to $1.5 million. Comparing that to our 2018-19 budget, we are expected to start at a significantly lower place of $494,000, bringing in a revenue of $683,000 and our total available resources just below $1.2 million. I do want to point out for our 2017-18 budget, you can notice that for the clubs, there is a significant proportion change. Clubs go from making around 38.2% of the revenue to 52.4% of the revenue. This change can be attributed to the Disney trip that both our band and choir will be going on, in addition to a lot of new clubs that we have introduced into Jackson, such as MIT Launch, etc. Going to our expenditures, looking at our 2016-17 actual, we start with $1.5 million. Our expenditures were around $878,000, bringing our ending fund balance to $632,000. Looking at our 18-19 expected budget, we start at $1.2 million and had a total expenditures of $874,000, having our ending fund balance be $303,000, which is almost half of what the 2016-17 actual budget was. So going to our breakdown, as expected, clubs, general student body, and athletics do make up the majority of revenues and expenditures. As far as revenues go, we get revenue from vending machines, ASB cards, which we recently just decreased the price of, and then our club fees, which almost all our clubs require. As far as expenditures go, a lot of our clubs and teams are known to make it to state and national levels. For example, TSA, DECA, FCCLA annually do make it to these competitions. And as mentioned earlier, our robotics team did just place second worldwide, which we're really proud of. So that does explain why clubs make up such a big proportion. And then going to our fund balance, as I kind of touched upon earlier, our 2016-17 actual fund balance was $632,000, and for our 2018-19 budget, it is expected to be $303,000. So collectively, as Jackson, we are actively working towards spending down. We do want to make experiences for our students, so we did have t-shirts at the beginning of the year. We noticed that a lot of our students do not have spirit wear that they can wear to our games, and we wanted to avoid that problem and not make it a burden on them, and kind of take that up to promote this sense of unity. We also had our Spirit Band, which we just started this year, which we're really excited about, and they will be playing at a lot of our games next year. And then we had robotics, which we funded roughly $20,000 for them to go to Houston for, I think, a week or so to compete on the worldwide level.
Here I have the 2017-2018 actual mid-year fund balance. So last year we did increase our budget by $30,000, but this year we decreased our budget by more than $80,000. Majority of this comes from the general student body fund. A lot of this stuff is because, a lot of these, the budget is decreased because of the participation in clubs and sports since the population at Jackson has increased tremendously. We do have a lot more people buying ASB cards and a lot more people participating in our sports. And also we had a decrease in funds by the decrease in ASB cards and parking passes, along with planning on more student experiences for the students, such as bringing in speakers at assemblies and more. Now I'll be going over the budget development process. This includes the budget process and the revenue distribution development process. So for the budget development process, this is for clubs, so we can make our budget for the beginning of a year. So in February, clubs and athletics will submit a budget plan and requests for the general reserve to the ASB. In March, ASB will go over these proposals and accept them and change them to see if they fit the desired budget. If there are any questions, we'll go back to the clubs, make sure that we get all approvals and make sure that they get what they need, along with approving our budget as well. And then in March through April, we clarify any questions and then approve the final budget and let the assistant principal and clubs know what the budget is for the next year and what they'll be receiving. The revenue distribution process, this is in case clubs need and athletics need money for the following year at certain times in the year, such as if they go to nationals or need certain equipment for any time that they need. A lot of this, they'll come in, send an email to our ASB secretary to propose a general transfer proposal. They'll come in with a PowerPoint that they have presented for us. Usually it's the captains and officers, and our ASB will look at their current budget and involvement in the school to see if how much community service they do, what they do for Jackson, along with their current budget and if they are spending down their budget, so we can make sure that we can help them and give them what they need, but make sure that they have money in their account as well. Any questions that our ASB has will be clarified, and we'll evaluate pros and cons to make our decision. And then once the decision is made, it'll be reported by the ASB treasurer and the secretary back to the club or athletics. And I have the budget development revenue distribution. We planned our budget for the next year to be $95,000 less than the current year. This is mainly because of the student store and what the new rules that the student store is bringing for us. Also, we did increase our revenue this year, but our expenditures did exceed our revenues for the following year. So yeah.
We're going to go ahead and resume the meeting after a brief recess for a little fresh air and refreshments. And take a deep breath, and when you're ready, please just continue.
Okay, so next we're going to be going over our ASB Snapshot, which is our major fundraising events, club events, activities, community service projects, points of pride, and then our suggestions for the future. And if you'll notice throughout this part, we do have quite a wide variety of events that do go on at our school, because with such a large student body, we do like to make a wide variety of activities available to our students so that everyone can find something that interests them to participate in. So first, our major fundraising events, we do have our big 4 events where all of our ASB classes run these together, and then the proceeds are split between our 4 graduating classes. So this is our macho volleyball tournament, our father-daughter dance, which we hold for our local elementary schoolers, our staff talent show, and then our student talent show. And this is the major source of income for our graduating classes. And then we've recently started hosting a Shuttlecock Showdown, which is a badminton tournament. We have our Powder Puff football tournament annually, and we recently started hosting a dodgeball tournament. So moving on to club events, we do host an Oktoberfest each fall, which is where our local elementary schoolers can come to an indoor club-sponsored trick-or-treating sort of event. Very safe environment. It's a good way to reach all of the community and allow families to really kind of come into our school community and see what it's like. We have an Earth Week, which our Project Green Club hosts every year around Earth Day, and Acceptance Week, which is run by our GSA club. We have a club fair at the beginning of the year where students are allowed to see all the different club opportunities available to them. And then we have our Voiceless, which is a lip-syncing competition, and many more events that are run throughout the year. And then moving on to our community service projects, we do host both the fall and spring food drive. Our fall food drive brought in over 10,000 donations, and our spring food drive brought in over 700 pounds of donations this year. We have a Henry the Giving Snowman event where students can bring in toys that go to low-income families that can't afford to buy presents for the holiday season, and that brought in over 700 donations this year. We also had Nick of Time heart screening where Jackson students were able to get their heart screened, preventative care for heart disease, and then we host 2 annual blood drives which both have over 100 participants each year.
Now moving on to our points of pride, we are very proud that we do have increased spirit and improved sportsmanship at games, which we have been working very hard to improve. Overall, we have decreased our ASB budget. This is due to meeting with the clubs monthly and really going over and saying that the culture is to, sorry, let me reword that. Saying that it is okay to spend down your budget before coming and asking for money, and that having money isn't always the best thing, and to use it on current students that we have now. Also, we are very proud that, as you guys know, many clubs do make it to state, nationals, and worlds like robotics annually. Also MIT Launch Club, Chess Club, TSA, DECA, and FCCLA. As for our future, we are trying to encourage participation in community events such as Fall Food Drive and Henry the Giving Snowman. We do very well with those events. However, these past 2 years have been a little lower than usual. So we are looking at getting those events back up to how they were by restructuring how we run those. We are going to discuss that more at the end of this year and next year of how we can do that. Also, we are continuing to educate and improve budget relations between ASB and clubs to spend down, as I had just spoke about. We also are trying to bring the community together at Jackson and protect the pack throughout the year. By this, we mean that we are the wolves, and so it is our motto to really promote inclusion and to make everybody feel included. We're doing that by, as Michaela had said earlier, giving the shirts out to all the students to promote inclusion there and in any other way as possible. Also, we would just like to give a quick thanks to Ms. Casaro, Mr. Briggs, Ms. Sidhu, and our custodians for helping us throughout the year and throughout this budget presentation, for really making it a great year for us. Any questions?
Thank you very much. I would say an eventful and excellent presentation. I just wanted to make a couple comments before I open it up to questions. Really, and I know my fellow directors here are thinking the exact same thing. Excellent effort to spend down the money and put the focus on partnering with your clubs and the activities to use the money on the students that are at the school now. And we appreciate that and like to see that. And then just the community service projects. You are a very large school, and you do have a lot of clubs and a lot of activities going on, but the upside of being a larger school is the impact you have on the community around you too, and that's really cool to see, especially when I hear those numbers of items and things that you're able to collect and distribute back out. So I just want to congratulate you on that as well. With that, directors and student representative, perhaps you want to delve into school issues here or questions? No? Directors?
Great presentation, and I would echo President Mason's comment about spending down the fund balance. You talked a little bit about what I thought I heard was some resistance to that, and I'm just curious, what were some of the conversations that you've encountered, because this is a bit of a shift as compared to where it was 2-3 years ago. So that would be one of my questions. And then maybe a question for Dr. Cohn. Is the uniform replacement policy, is that district-wide? In terms of, for example, Everett High School said they replace their unis every 5 years, is what I heard, right? Is that?
That's a question I've not been asked in 8.5 years.
Okay.
I know we bought some uniforms out of the general fund for one of the schools because they were having a little bit of trouble raising money.
Right.
I know about the helmet process, the checking and the replacement and all that sort of thing in the life. But frankly, I haven't spent any time talking with them about uniform replacement. So I can find out for you.
Yeah, I was just more curious, is it 5 years at one school, 4 years at another school? How do we address that? So.
All right, we'll ask. I know that Mr. Polk can get us that information.
Okay.
What, all sports?
Yeah, I'd just be curious.
I just wanted to answer your question about the resistance. So what we found as our school is just in like ASB in general, there was this kind of idea that we had to have like this flotation device, for lack of better words, of like money to make sure like in case anything happened. But we found that we actually can spend this money down and that it's okay to spend it down to a lower ending point than what we were doing. And as for clubs, we found that there was kind of a lack of education about budgeting because I guess when you look at budgeting, it can come off as very daunting and hard to understand. So we have implemented monthly meetings for our club presidents to come to where we've talked about their budget, have told them how much they've had, and we have seen the clubs actively work to spend that down.
That's a great idea. Director Andrews?
Great presentation. I did have a question. You talked about it was in the budget development process, and when you reach the point where the decision is made as to what to allocate to clubs, who makes that decision? Is it just the ASB officers? Is it the entire ASB?
So are you referencing the revenue distribution throughout the year or for the overall budget that we do like once throughout the year?
Well, I was looking at slide 12 where you went, revenue distribution, yes.
Okay, so throughout the year, so the way that's set up, our clubs or sports will come in to present, and then it's our ASB officer, so it's our executive board, and then each of our 4 class boards that vote overall will have a discussion, and then vote overall, and then majority votes whether or not to approve like the full amount, partial amounts, or deny clubs' requests for funds.
Okay. I also was looking at the detail of what the different clubs will get, the detail in the consolidated budget or the ASB budget. And I see that there's a club called Tech Student Association that the expenditure for them was $40,000. But what is that club?
So that is our TSA. So basically they just offer a bunch of competitions that the students will participate in at both state and national levels to further like technological education. So they have you can make a short film, you can do advertising and stuff like that. So it just offers a variety of events for our students to do. And it's quite a big club too at our school.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I do recognize TSA. I didn't recognize Tech Student Association, so sorry.
That all?
Just one last comment. The Oktoberfest, where you bring the young children in, that's a great way to expose them to high school. And also, like you say, get the community members in. So, wonderful event.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming here tonight and sharing your budget. Excellent job. Thank you.
And next we have Sequoia High School. Mr. Ray?
Good evening. I'm Jack Roy. I'm the ASB advisor at Sequoia High School. Charlie Maxine, in light of everything that has gone on, has a little anxiety. So Emmanuel has stepped up, and I'd like to introduce Emmanuel Ellis, who is going to do Sequoia's presentation.
My objective today is to present to the board for approval for our school's 18-19 ASB budget proposal. An overview of what I'll be talking about today would be the ASB budget, which would include revenues and expenses, our budget development in ASB snapshot, then lastly, questions. I'd like to spend a few minutes on ASB budget now. First, the revenues. Next year, we have a projected budget of beginning fund balance for $3,835, and that which would include our general student body, our clubs and non-ASB funds, and we don't have athletics, which is why that has no money. In our graduating classes, we use other expenses. For our expenses, we increased our general student body to 3,400 due to us, for the first time in a couple years, opening up a student store, which includes shirts and other materials. And then we have 100 for graduating classes, for whether that's decorations or stuff for graduation. Clubs, and then non-ASB funds, and that non-ASB funds is for our charitable donations. And this is just a visual breakdown of our revenue and expenses. Our estimated fund balance for next year is our estimated fund balance for next year is 3025 ending fund balance, and as you can see, from 2 years ago to 6,166 down to now 3,225. So you can see that we've been slowly giving back to our school. In our actual mid-year fund balance, as you can see, we have $909. That has gone down since, due to us buying shirts, which has just came in. And yeah, sorry. For budget development, I'll now talk about budget development. Our ASB process is our student representatives examined our budget, and then clubs had an opportunity to request funds and present expenses. And then our yearbook club requested for funds due to us giving our yearbooks free to our students. So we also put that into consideration for our budget for next year. Our revenue our ASB reviewed distribution projections to see where the money would go. And the ASB also examined trends in revenues to see where what the students would like the most for us to put the money there too. As you can see, our school doesn't have ASB or ID cards. We also do not hold dances, but we do get some money from our beverage machines, and then our newly opened student store, which would give us a total of 3,100. Now for our ASB snapshot, our major fundraising events is our vending and beverage machines. Some of our clubs, events and activities is our art and anime, our book club, which has combined with our knitting club. Then we have the We Are Grateful Thanksgiving lunch, Winter Wonderland waffle breakfast, and then my personal favorite, We're a Lucky Potato Bar, which is free, which our school gives free breakfast to our students and teachers. Oop, did I miss one? Okay, no. Then our community service was our food drive, our blood drive, which we had 35 people sign up, and then 21 first-timer donations. And then our YMCA coin drive, where they give us our school free memberships and also scholarships. So we do a little coin drive to help give back for what they've given to us. And some of our points of pride is we have college visitation field trips. 2 times a year we have Rotary speakers about so students can talk to people about careers that they want to go in and have that connection to see if they want to pursue that. And then our t-shirts, that we just got, and then our staff support and relationships. A lot of teachers have talked about, a lot of students have talked about developing that they liked. And some of our suggestions for future is a more functional ASB, election changes, which we have terms, and we are planning on doing it from term 4 and then back again to term 4 due to a lot of seniors and juniors signing up and then either graduating or not returning the next year. So we've encouraged freshmen and sophomores to try to join the ASB and developing a school identity. That's there's a lot of people who you ask, like, hey, what school? Sequoia. Like, I didn't know that was a school. So we're trying to develop that school identity so a lot of people can know that we're just more than an alternative school. And then I'd like to open up to the board for questions.
Great, thank you. I'd like to congratulate you on a commendable job for going on it alone. It's a difficult task to do it with a team, and you should be very proud of yourself for standing up and taking over. With that, do directors or student representative have a question? Anybody?
No questions, but I just want to say really nice presentation, and especially really good work with developing the school identity. I think that's really important going towards the future.
Yeah, fantastic job. Just being thrown in at the last minute. But I will tell you, you found your groove and you did a wonderful job, especially presenting financial information. This can be an intimidating setting. So wonderful, wonderful job. The question, you know, it's funny. We talk about fund balance for the 3 comprehensive high schools, and then we always see Sequoia's is much smaller. And, you know, I could make an argument for making that slightly bigger so you can do what you want to do. But the question I have for you is, where do you feel you're underfunded?
Just recently, one of our clubs have thought about, a lot of people in that club have complained that they feel that they don't have enough resources. It's our arts club. They don't have enough resources to fully dive in because one of the teachers actually bought a lot of the resources for the club, and he doesn't want to keep on buying for if students are not going to have it. But other than that, I feel like our school has enough have good enough fund, at least that I feel like.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions?
Great presentation, especially doing it on your own last minute. The student store, I have been to Sequoia many times, but I don't recall seeing a student store. So where is it located?
We actually just did it today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't miss it then.
A reason to go back to Sequoia and see where the student store is.
And the way this is, and the way that we set this up is that you pay through the office and then you come to our advisor and you just get the shirt there. And as of right now, all we have are T-shirts. But if this goes well, we're planning on going on to hoodies and to the broader spectrum.
Are these the wonderful purple T-shirts that?
Those are staff shirts, but the students have designed a new Sequoia shirt
Oh.
that arrived today. There's actually a student store in the cafeteria
through
a rolled door, but it hasn't been staffed for quite, like, we haven't been able to have the kids staffing to run it for years.
Thank you. And congratulations on your blood drive.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for presenting Sequoia's budget to us tonight. We appreciate it.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Okay, and last but not least, we have Cascade. Ms. Rogers.
Perfect.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Rogers. I'm the ASB advisor at Cascade, and I am proud to introduce my students who've worked hard on preparing this budget and this presentation for you. First, we have Connor Robinson, who is our current ASB president, and Joe Hoffman is our current secretary, but he'll be stepping into the role of ASB president next year. Layla Bandringa is a rock star, and she's filling in for our treasurer, and she's going to be doing all of our numbers. She's our current ASB public relations. And Sabrina Riley is our newly elected ASB treasurer. So here they are.
Thank you for having us this evening. Our objective for tonight will be to present our 2018-19 ASB budget for board approval and to highlight our school activities and points of pride. We will begin by reviewing our budget development process and how we got our projected numbers, and then we will review our revenues and expenditures projected for next year. Then we will finish with our ASB snapshot, including school points of pride, fundraising events, and community service projects, and then we will finish with questions. Here's Sabrina Riley to talk about our budget development process.
This year, we're using the same process that has been used by ASB for the past 3 years. For athletics, we work with the athletic director to review their allocations for the past 3 years, and we also built room for fundraisers based on their input. In clubs, we had a meeting with the club officers to discuss the budget process, where we provided them with our account activity for the past 3 years to allow them to predict their revenues and expenses. And then for general ASB, we met with current and incoming ASB, and we based it off of previous years and our projected needs. So for revenue distribution, we stayed with a system that has been working smoothly for past years. For athletics, they have projected allocations based off of their recent successes and season fundings, because they usually have a consistent pattern of what they bring in and take out each year. And for clubs, we don't provide money upfront to them. They request funds from ASB as they find it needed. And general ASB, we review our past spending and needs. And as you can see, our revenue has been pretty consistent, with vending machines bringing in about $6,000 a year and dances bringing in about $9,000. We did overestimate our budget for the 2017 through 18 year. As we got new products in the vending machines, we thought we would have more of an income, but it was actually very flat at about $6,000. Last year, we cut down parking ticket prices in half, which we were very excited about, and that was to better accommodate the students and make it more available to them. This year, we're very excited that we're lowering ASB card prices to $45 to better accommodate our students and make it more available to them. We realize that this will bring in lower revenue, but we're still going to get revenue from it because it's only $5, but it's making it more accessible to a variety of Cascade students. And then next we'll have Layla Bandriga talking about our ASB budget.
We will begin by looking at our revenues for this upcoming year. When looking at our athletic and graduating classes accounts, we've seen that they tend to stay very similar, and this is because these accounts do the same activities from year to year. When looking at our general student body accounts, you'll see that there's a difference of about $330,000 in revenue. This is due to the fact that band and choir had trips planned in this current year on a much larger scale, and in the next coming year they have the same amount of trips, but just not on as big of a scale. When looking at our clubs, there is a sizable difference of about $100,000, and a big portion of that is due to the fact that our cheer program has gone to nationals this year, and they hope that they can do that again next year, as well as we've added another cheer squad. We've also added 9 new clubs, so a part of that money is going to them, as well as our other competitive clubs have estimated for travel expenses and competitions for next year. Finally, looking at our non-ASB accounts, in our food drive account, there sits about $32,000, which students bring in every year, as well as we've received a very generous $15,000 grant from Safeway, and we hope that we can get that again next year. Looking at our expenditures, the biggest difference you'll see is in our general student body accounts. Like I had mentioned before, this is due to the fact that band and choir had much larger trips planned in this current year than they do next year. Looking at our breakdowns for both revenues and expenditures, you'll see that both of the money that we bring in and the money going out goes back into our students, and we've tried to be equitable amongst both of our athletics and our clubs. We have a philosophy that both clubs and athletics, they
spend the money that they bring in each year, and as you can see, that they've worked hard to do that this year. Moving on to our fund balance, we've listened to the board members, and we as an ASB team this year have worked hard to lower our fund balances. You'll see that we project to end the school year with about $175,000, which is nearly half of what we ended the 2016-2017 year with. When looking at this $175,000, this leaves us enough room to comfortably support our athletics and our clubs, as well as being able to have a little blanket room if there are any unexpected expenses. We recently looked at our current fund balance, and we are actually at about $100,000, but with some open purchase orders still out there, we expect to end the year with about $170,000. Finally, looking at our mid-year fund balance, we've compared this to past years, and we've seen that a lot of our spending happens towards the end of the year. In our athletic accounts, a lot of this money will be gone out to pay the officials as the sports seasons continue on. Graduating classes, a lot of their events happen at the end of the year with paying for dances and their class events. And then finally, with our non-ASB account, again, food drive, we wait until this time of the year for all of the bills to balance out before we can decide how much money we can donate to the Volunteers of America. Now we will be having Joe Hoffman and Connor Robinson talk about our ASB snapshot.
This year we had many successful fundraisers. We decided to continue on with some of our more traditional fundraisers like Homecoming and Talent Show, which were very effective in bringing in funds. With the introduction of some newer clubs, we were also able to host a 3-on-3 basketball tournament and a badminton tournament, which were very effective in creating school inclusivity. This year we were able to put on some really cool school events that really kind of showcased Cascade's great diversity. Our Muslim Student Association hosted a World Hijab Day in which they shared their culture through sharing their cultural scarves. Our Latino club hosted their very first baile, which is a Hispanic-themed dance. At the baile, the Latino club shared their cultural music. In addition, the parents of the club officers prepared traditional food that they gave out at the dance. A large part about being a Bruin is community service. This year, at our 56th annual food drive, we brought in around 82,000 food items, $32,000, and around 1,900 gifts. We also were able to host our very first October fundraiser, in which we collected socks, which were then donated to the Everett Gospel Mission. And new this year, our Interact Club, which is sponsored by the Rotary, is hosting Project Pink, which is a feminine hygiene product drive, and those donations will be given to teens in our community.
One of our main goals as an ASB this year has been to increase opportunities for success, inclusivity, and involvement among our student body. In starting 9 new clubs at our school, we believe we have done that and are working further to do that more. Clubs such as eSports, which is a group that gets together to find a common hobby in competitive gaming, and the Silver Squad, our new cheer squad that is available for underclassmen, have shown that we are trying to be more inclusive to our students and a wider variety of our students at our school. Groups like Cheer, HOSA, Swim and Dive, DECA, STEAM, Robotics, and other musicians have placed at nationals, state, and regional competitions as well. We have also focused this year on listening to the student voice through Student Council and Senate. In doing so and spending down our parking money account, we have purchased 8 new benches for our school, as well as vinyl decals in the restrooms and various other locations around the school. We have also added a new ASB position called the Ambassador that will focus on student relations and ensuring that all students have equal access to ASB funds and ASB activities. Having been an ASB officer for 2 years, one of the greatest suggestions that I have for the ASB team going to next year is to continue placing equity and non-ASB officer voice at the top of our priorities. And doing things like decreasing the ASB card price, but while increasing its value, we are doing just that and working harder to accommodate all students at our school. I also suggest that they continue finding solutions for our students because there's a variety and a diverse cultural background of the students at our school. The floor is now open for questions.
Great, thank you for An excellent fourth presentation. I have a question. Is it harder to go first or to wait till last?
I think first is harder.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious. We switch the order up every year, and I'm just wondering how the students feel about it. I had a quick question before I turn it over to my fellow directors. 9 new clubs. That really jumped out at me. Is that normal? Or has it been just an exceptionally busy year for you?
We started a few last year. It wasn't nearly close to 9. I think there was about 2 or 3. But this year we've definitely focused on telling our students that they have the opportunity to start new clubs if they're interested in, finding ways for them to get together with students that they find a common interest in, and that ASB funds are accessible for their interest and to find success and inclusivity at our school. So it is irregular. We haven't really had 9 new clubs jump out every year, but we're happy that we've had this and that students are finding more opportunities for involvement.
I think that's great, especially when I look at the clubs. There's just a real diversity in there and definitely helping meet your goal of more inclusivity at your school. So I congratulate you on that. Directors, what other questions or student representative do you have for Cascade ASB?
I thought I heard a process that seemed different from the previous presentations, and that was, and please correct me if I'm wrong, so clubs request afterwards their funding. Is that true for other ASBs?
So we don't do a club allocation at the beginning of the year. What we do is, started last year, we have an ASB contribution request, and when they need funds for their club, other than what they have gotten from fundraising, if there's funds that they still need, then they fill out the form, and then we approve it as an ASB and deliver the funds to them.
Thank you.
I graduated from Cascade over 40 years ago, and when I see those pictures, it takes me right back. Nothing much has changed, quite honestly. And I just become a 16-year-old again, so. Yeah, interesting. Great presentation. I liked, again, your explanations of the variances in the budget between years, because I always have questions on that, but you answered them again. Really nice focus on equity, and your community service is really notable and very impressive. I do have a question, and this may actually be a Ruth question, I'm not sure, but something I saw this year that I don't recall seeing in previous years is estimating the fund balance at the end of this year. So you've got the slide with the 2017-18 estimated fund balance, and then you're using that fund balance for your beginning fund balance for the next year's budget.
Yes, so we have gotten comments in past years that there isn't a slide that estimates where we think we'll really end at the end of the current year. And we include budget information for revenues and expenditures because we don't know exactly what they'll be at the end of this year. However, we can estimate ending fund balance for this year because we do that every year by having a beginning fund balance for the following fiscal year. And so we thought that if we added in fund balance, it might be nice to include for 17-18 that estimated ending fund balance or beginning fund balance for the next fiscal year instead of what we had budgeted.
It was really nice. It tied things together for me really well. So is that based on like month-end February results or something?
The students do it themselves.
Oh.
They look at their current revenues and expenditures and their current fund balance, and they talk with the student body and find out what is coming down the pike for the rest of the year, and then bring those estimates to the budget themselves.
Great. Yeah. Good. It's got to be a great learning experience.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize for being late, and this is always one of my favorite presentations, is seeing all the schools, so I apologize. But I don't know if all the other schools mentioned it, because again, I was late. But I really do appreciate the fact that you guys listened to us about your fund balances, because you bring in the money. We want you to spend the money. We want the students who earn it to see it. And so I appreciate the fact that you work with our finance departments, and hopefully all of you reported on that is happening, because good. Thank you. And then also just what was already said, the inclusiveness, whatever that word would be in a plural, multiple, that you expressed that's happening at your school. Your food drive, I think, is probably the biggest one. I'm just going to say the county, probably at least the district, but let's just say the county, because you guys do outstanding work there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, with that, we will say thank you to you for an excellent presentation. So before all the students get up and head home to do homework, I'm sure, we would love to have you come join us up at the front of the room and get a quick photo with all of you.
There are no AP tests happening this week.
No.
Yeah, right.
We're going to take a 15-minute break. Debbie? Yeah, you got it. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just so you guys know, my sister's good. It was just a check of her stent. And Dr. Collins just said she got a stent through her tumor so that it could open up her airway. And it's open. Dr. Collins said 2 to 3 months problems, yeah. The appointment was at
Okay, I think we're going to get started here 6 seconds early to kind of chip away at the meeting tonight. We have now another information topic, North Middle School modernization update. And Dr. Cohn, could you please introduce this?
Yes, I'd be happy to. You all asked for a bit of an update on what's happening with the North Middle project. It's a very exciting activity. Lots of folks in the north region of the district are anticipating this project. We've made a couple of adjustments we want you to be aware of, and we want you to just be generally aware of the progress. I included in the agenda item a map that was provided to me during the time that I was attending an advisory committee, a Washington State University Everett campus advisory committee that I've been serving on for a while. It shows you the position of the university, the college, one of the elementary schools closest, and sort of the landscape around the development. And the reason I put this in there, as well as a Google map that shows you the distance from the Hawthorne campus to the North campus, was to give you a sense of what Director Wenta was alluding to in his comments with respect to the changes that are occurring and that are being planned for and being implemented in that northeast quadrant and north portion of the city. So that's sort of a little bit of context. If you were wondering why those images were in there, we don't typically put those in for you. There's just so much happening around the development of the city and higher education that I wanted you to have that context as Darcy gives you a 5-minute update on what's happening with North.
Thank you very much. Tonight's objective, as Dr. Cohen said, was to provide you a status update on North Middle School modernization. We'll talk briefly about some completed tasks and milestones, some upcoming components of the project. We'll touch briefly on the exterior color palette, phasing plans. I'll touch briefly on floor plans, site plans, and then finish up with a high-level overview of the project schedule. So recently, the City of Everett has issued the special use permit. This is the permit. This is our land use permit. It's a great milestone to get that behind us. We expect the city to issue us the building permit in May. We've ordered 10 portables. They'll be showing up to the site in support of the modernization. They'll be showing up in June, and they'll be ready to occupy in end of August. Bids were received, and earlier tonight you had authorized the award of bid to Spee West Construction for the project. So we'll get Spee West under contract and get them going. Construction will begin as soon as school's out in June, and the new building will be complete and ready for occupation in September of 2019. Just some real brief renderings of the site, the exterior. So this shot is looking from the southwest, looking northeast. It's a new entry to the school. Here's a rendering of the courtyard. So we have this fully enclosed interior courtyard of the school. This rendering is, again, it's a little bit further back perspective from the main entry of the site. This is looking southeast, looking northwest along Rainier Avenue. So this is the east face of the school. Again, on Rainier Avenue, we're standing northeast, looking southwest. One thing we might do with our architectural team, we've asked them to try and punch up this face of the building a little more. It's a little bit monochromatic. And you'll see another shot coming up here too of this one. This shows the new covered play attached to the north side of the existing gymnasium. If you wish, I've got some samples we can look at real briefly too. So this will be the masonry color. We've got metal siding, and then we'll have painted cementitious. Three main elements on the exterior of the building. Let me back up one. So this is the current layout of the site. Phase 1 of this project will put 10 portables out on the field. We'll occupy those portables, move everybody out of B building into the portables and into A building. That'll allow us to demolish B building. We can then construct a new 2-story building. When that building is finished, we can move everybody out of the A building, our students and staff, and out of the portables. That'll allow us to demolish the A building. It'll allow us to move the portables off the field. With that work complete, we can build a new parking lot to the west of the new school, and it'll allow us to upgrade the fields and then begin, in this phase, we'll also begin the modernization of the gym building. Real brief overview of the floor plans. So we've got, this will be the new building attached to the gymnasium. We've got admin in here, cafe, stage, obviously classroom wing here. Everything stacks on the second floor, classroom wings. And again, here, this is a little different than we've had in the past. It's our library. It's going to be up on the second floor. This just shows you the penthouse that's on the north wing of the new building. It'll be the mechanical penthouse. And again, the overall site layout, when we're completed, we'll have new synthetic turf fields, new synthetic track, new parking lot here to the west of the building. And at this phase, we'll have also completed all of the remaining site work. So schedule-wise, we're looking at occupying the new building, this part of the site, September 2019, and then the remaining portion of the site work will be complete spring, summer of 2020. So it's a real brief overview. I just want to open it up for questions or comments.
Thank you.
Yes.
Directors, do you have questions for Mr. Walker regarding the modernization?
I just have a quick question, not directly at you, but it was something I spoke to Dr. Cohn about too. Not this past weekend, the weekend before, I happened to be down, saw my old high school, where in front of my high school was a sign at either entrance on a neighborhood street, so not a busy street, that said, thank you for our 20 whatever bond, for our, yeah, they get to buy luxury things like a field house with their bond, not like a new remodernized school. But I just wondered about the opportunities, especially with the comments we've had before about we haven't had anything to show the community, but if there are opportunities to put something on Broadway, on Sunset, on 35th that say, you know, thank you for your bond, construction is beginning, and then these site renderings. It was a bright white sign, and it's just an opportunity that I wonder that this is a great presentation. So my statement is bigger than that.
Yeah, I can answer that. We do plan on and have it built into this project and into Elementary 18 to provide 2 site signs.
Okay.
That'll have a rendering of each of the sites and a big thank you to our voters.
Perfect. Thank you. Because I took a picture because it was nice.
Go ahead.
Okay. We did have a conversation about signage last week.
Oh, okay.
And I think the general direction is, definitely moving forward with new bonds to always make sure that we provide the funding to do that. But that if we have the capability, even with the 2016 bond, to add signage to really any construction project that it makes sense. Because, you know, when we do security upgrades at the elementary schools, even though they're not, you know, as large a project as a modernization, we certainly want parents and students and people to know that that's going on at that school and thank them.
That's great, because a comment came out from a parent about the new roof at Gateway. You can't tell the difference in the old and the new. Why don't we make the new blue so everybody knows? Well,
right.
A nice sign
yes.
could say the thank you.
So signs placed where, you know, and I think the primary audience would be parents and families and such, you know, some community members that drive that route, but certainly to bring awareness that the money's being spent and some of these important projects are happening.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I was just kind of wondering about the timing of moving the students around. Will students be moved as a grade? So say the 8th graders will get to move in the new part of the building before they depart, or is that part of the plan?
We aren't planning to move them by grade. It'll be moving those students and staff that are in B building. We'll move them into A building and into the portables. So whatever grade, I anticipate that the grades will be moving around through the A building and the portables.
And how about the finished school? Like I know at the middle school my sons went to, they had grades on like each floor, which I think was kind of nice. Very
good question. So as the plan sits now, we were anticipating having the 6th graders down on the first floor and the 7th and 8th graders on the second floor.
Thank you.
RC, can you speak to, and I apologize if this is getting into the weeds, on slide 18, are those regulation size fields?
The football field is a regulation size field. It barely fits, and we still have enough room at each end zone to have it be a safe field.
Okay.
So that is that will be a regulation size football field. That's my understanding. The track, however, we just can't make it a regulation track. Yeah. We just don't quite have enough room.
I would urge my fellow directors, certainly I don't think this is just a school modernization. There is an emotional attachment to North. And I think that's certainly what added to the passing of the bond when we looked at this is people felt it was sorely in need. And Dr. Cohn, I appreciate you including the maps, because I think there is a transformation that's happening in North Everett. And again, I think we have an opportunity when we look at kind of a rebranding of this school to really involve the community and have the community get excited about what this could mean. And I would really urge us to consider moving in that direction if the board feels that's appropriate.
So you outlined the different phases of construction, and so I was wondering if are those phases going to be lined up with the beginning and end of the school year so that students aren't moved during the year, or is that an ongoing process?
It is a bit of an ongoing process, but yeah, we're trying to move the students at strategic times, and certainly not trying to move them in the middle of the school year. We've done many projects where we have phased those projects, and obviously the best time to move the students is during the summer, or we've even moved students during the winter break. Yeah, great question.
Does the school have more capacity after the remodel than prior to?
Oh, great question. I believe it'll actually have slightly less capacity than it has now. It will, however, have more standardized size classrooms. We have, in the current facility, there are more classrooms, but they're quite a bit smaller. They're 750 square feet, which is, we're building more around 950 square feet now. So we're right-sizing the classrooms, but it makes it a little bit smaller in capacity.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So I'm hearing conversation about renaming process, and I'm seeing nods around the board table. This isn't an action item per se, but if it's the consensus among you, we'll go ahead and develop a proposal for you to consider at your next regular meeting that would design a renaming process for you to respond to. Involve the community, involve whatever aspects of it that you think are important to do. We'll design something and bring it back to you and tell us if that is what you have in mind, as you briefly talked about it.
And if we were to hear from the community that the majority, or however it is, doesn't want to change, then we've gone through the same process.
So that would be a decision that you would build into the process to determine the extent to which that name was a name you wanted to stick with versus some other name.
Okay, but at least have the option. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's, yeah, okay.
You've already got a school with a name. It's not like, you don't have to make that choice. Really, the question will be the process that we would follow between now and the sense of the time when we would purchase and put a name on the school, because the signage is, and the staff would, of course, be involved, and you've got to look at the wayfinding and how many different times you might have that replicated throughout the facility, and where you would involve the students, because you'd want them to be able to consider a mascot change, those kinds of things. So we'd bring you up. It's not like this is something that's never been done before, so we can certainly look at some, the ways people have done it in the past and bring you a reasonably timed.
What is our process actually? Because we have a new school opening before this is done. So what is the?
You've got a naming process too.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and we'll be seeing a structure around that process as well.
Right.
I'm assuming in the not too distant future.
That's correct.
Yeah, and the thing I would add is when we met with the teachers at North, there were probably 3 or 4 teachers who had been part of a renaming process in other school districts. And so it really kind of informed approaches that were valuable, as well as pitfalls to avoid. So it's one of those things I think you have to tread very lightly, and it's all in the process. The process as much as the process.
Thank you.
I think I'm seeing mostly nods around the table here, so.
All right, we'll bring you something back and get something on your next regular meeting agenda.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have, looks like Mr. Gunn to speak with us about our high school enrollment growth engagement meetings coming up.
Yes, thank you. So what we have for you tonight is basically a review, fairly brief review of 3 community engagement meetings coming up. And we're structuring them as community conversations, and we wanted to basically show you, talk to you about it, show you an outline of those 3 meetings, and then ask for your comments or guidance about anything that you would like us to consider changing in the design of those events. So we're planning. And the focus of these will be the high school enrollment growth options. And what I'll do now is go through the actual outline. It's about a 1-page outline, and I thought that would be the best way to do it. And then I'll make some comments at the end, and then ask you for comments.
Mike, I'm just thinking we've got a very short amount of time for this item. The board members have seen this in multiple forms. They've had a chance to look at it multiple times. Why don't you just share the thoughts that you've got, and they can tell us whether or not they want to change it.
I will. Okay, good. All right, so it will be structured as a, right now our plan is anyway, to use small group conversations to do the actual presentation. So I would be doing most of it. I think I would have a little bit of help, but basically talking to the community that is in attendance about the options that we have. And then we would have table captains that would be school principals and or other school administrators that would be at each table facilitating conversations in small groups with specific questions that we would provide them kind of a structure for the conversation. And after they have those conversations, then we would ask for them to report out to the larger group what their primary themes are from their conversations. So that's basically the structure. It's very similar to some events that we did. I think it was last spring. I think there were 5. We did one at each middle school where we went out and did the same basic thing around the bond topics. So one of the questions that we have for you is if that kind of was how you thought this should be structured. And in particular, I'm looking for some comments from you about how the board members that are in attendance, if there are any, we expect that there will be, how you would like to be involved in that process. In the conversations, would you like to be individually seated at tables, participating perhaps in the conversation, or would you like to be listening or wandering around and kind of listening in as you want to? Certainly you would be there, I would guess, to hear the report outs from the entire, from all the table captains from the small group conversations.
So just double checking, each of these small groups all topics are discussed. They aren't organized by topic.
No, correct. We would be asking them a series of 3 or 4 questions. Basically, we're going to be presenting to them, remember, options about how we deal with the growth primarily at Jackson High School, but it has implications for the other 3 high schools. So the questions we'll be asking each of the table groups will be, which options do you prefer? And what concerns do you have? And what other concerns or suggestions or comments do you have? So that's basically it. Ultimately, one of the big things we're going to try to get from the evening is some community voice that you will hear and that we as staff will hear and that we'll use in further conversations and decision-making about what to do about the high school growth at Jackson High School and possibly even at the other 2 high schools as a consequence, really, of the failure of the bond that would have provided a new high school for us.
But the structure is not just about those 3 options. It's about people suggesting other ideas and us talking about a variety of ideas that the district's considered over time, because the design of this was to cast a broad net and collect a lot of different ideas without putting a specific set out there for people to choose from, right?
So, are the tables, will the staff person be at each table to help take notes or direct the conversation?
Yes,
or answer questions about maybe the why nots or something, or the whys?
It would, the way that we're envisioning it would be more of a, they would be certainly table captains. So our staff, our principals or administrators will be at each table facilitating conversations. I think what we're really trying to do is to be really good listeners, to provide the community an opportunity to tell us what they're thinking about it.
So this is an important design concept. I mean, we're not trying to put people at tables to defend any of them, just
what do you think about? What do you think about? What do you think about?
It's, I mean, what you asked for was something that was very open.
Yeah.
And the design is intended to provide a refresh on some information and then allow people to have conversations in reasonable sized groups and then report out, not to.
And will there be any conversation about our thoughts about that we don't know when we'll put out a bond? Because with this?
So we've designed this and we've included parameters, if you will, that say this is not a conversation about the next bond. This is a conversation about how we deal with not having a bond. And I guess one of the questions you have to answer is, if somebody just wants to come there to talk about running the bond again, do you want to have another table for them to go do that?
Ask a clarifying question first. When the meetings first begin, you will be presenting to everybody in the room and giving them a foundation and a background of enrollment growth and what has been discussed to date. Is that what I understood?
Yes.
Okay, and then the breakouts.
Yes.
Okay.
It's very likely that I would cover briefly the parts of the conversation you've had recently about a potential bond.
But that the conversation is not about bond, it's what to do in the 5, 6, 7, 8 years until a new high school is completed. Or,
we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean, it's that ... Yeah. We have to do something with this, with these students. Okay.
Our publication of this so far has been on the premise that there is no bond and no high school.
Yeah, it's what to do with this growth.
Yeah, without another high school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're not planning a quorum at these, are we? Or are you going to see who's going to be at each of them?
We've given you a calendar. We're scheduling each as a board meeting so that if 3 of you show up, we're not in violation.
Okay.
I would suggest that during the opening comments or just kind of, talking about enrollment growth and all, that we include a history of the district and the board's actions to build a new high school and to pass a bond. For example, that we purchased the property back in 2008 or whenever it was.
That we've
the planning that we've done. I just, I don't want the community to come to these meetings and think that, oh, suddenly we realize,
really good point.
That we've got a problem, because we've known we've had a problem for a long time and tried to address it. And I think by making them aware that we've made a lot of efforts in this area and just truly need support to build the new high school would help frame the issue a little bit better too.
Thanks.
And the solution.
I think that's a great point too. And I think I have run across quite a few community members that don't know that we own that property. And any, I know we've undergone some design work, not on a new school per se, but just because of the elementary school, some of the groundwork literally has been, had to be done at that time. And so just sort of including that in that, we've gone as far as we can go.
And I wonder too, specifically for the Jackson community, because I've heard it down there, why were we building a high school 1 mile from another high school? And I have to explain, it's not our high school. And so I don't know, how much anybody else is hearing that, but it's that the property is near another high school, that is another district, but it's already over, it's already close to Variance, Glacier Peak's close, like really the whole pressure on that south end. And I don't know if that's too big, but Cascade might not know that. Maybe they'd like to know that too, that we are building a high school near another high school, but it's another district, and it causes confusion. There's confusion down there for some reason about that North Creek High School and why we can't use it. I'm not confused.
Okay, so the original question, now that we've given you lots of suggestions on information to include, was how we might choose to be involved in these meetings.
I did have a process comment, though. If I look at the overview, it feels very Jackson-centered as far as they bear the brunt of solving this problem. 2 of the 3 options are Jackson High School, double shifting, more portables. And I would really encourage us that this needs to be seen as a district-wide solution. And I'm not sure how we do that. I'm not suggesting that, but that the pain, for lack of a better term, has to be experienced district-wide. We cannot sit here as a community and say 2,500 is okay for Jackson, but 1,500 is okay, or 1,250 is okay for Everett High School. I think it's bigger than that, and we need to really emphasize that if we are a district that is committed to equity and access in providing hopefully same learning environments, that this needs to be talked about. And because if I'm and please forgive me, if I'm an Everett High School student and 2 of the 3 solutions suggested are Everett or Jackson High School, figure it out, that's easy. I can wipe my hands clean of that. Where if I'm an Everett High parent and say, no, this has real implications for me because it's going to impact me, I'm going to feel pain, then I think it looks a little bit different in terms of the response we're trying to solicit.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
For participation, the only meeting I can be at is the last one, because I'll be out of town next week. So I don't know, I'll do whatever has happened at the previous ones and whatever you guys think is best for whoever's at the Jackson one. I think it'd be nice if we had the same thing at each meeting. So whatever you guys think for whoever's going to be at the other 2.
Well, that is the same.
Doesn't need to be the same based on.
No, I think the needs for Jackson are very different than the needs for Everett or Cascade.
But what we do during the meeting, if we sit at a table, or if we roam, or if we just sit up with Mike and watch. I don't have a preference, or I don't.
I would prefer to either roam or watch, quite honestly. I just think you get especially if you can roam, you get kind of what you're hearing.
I'm flexible.
But I'm okay anyway.
I'll do whatever.
I'll do whatever.
I think I like your point, I guess, that to be able to wander around and sort of eavesdrop as the conversations are happening would be helpful to kind of get a broader understanding of lots of different comments.
So maybe what we'll do is make sure that there is one chair at each table that's reserved for a board member, and then you can table the table as you like.
Or we can just hover over.
And then will we have a handout? Will people walk away with information, or is that not a part of it? Just curious.
I'm sure that we'll have appropriate information to send home with them. We'll have displays of the options, and we've been, well, as you know, I've been out of town, so I haven't been able to do a lot on this, but we've also been kind of waiting for this conversation so that we could figure out what the process design is like, and then we'll get busy on the handouts and stuff.
I like the idea of rounding because then I have my board hat on versus my Jackson parent hat, because I do have my opinions as a Jackson parent, but I have my responsibility as a board member. So better if I'm not sitting at a table.
For the whole community.
It is for the whole community, and that's where I am a board member at those meetings, and it probably is better that I'm not sitting with friends.
So I'm expecting this will be mostly parents, guardians of students. Are we doing anything specific to reach out to students to get their input?
We'll be asking our principals to help us with that, but I don't know that we are at this point. We'll be certainly asking our CFAC, which has I think 5 students on it, 5 or 6 students, to help spread the word and to attend if they can and get their friends. But I'm sure you're right. I'm sure it'll be mostly parents that will be attending.
I know.
We sent 2 notes to staff.
Yeah, I know Dr. Cohn sent out a message to staff as well, and it would be great to get some teacher and staff input, given that they're probably the most impacted along next to students. Okay, do you have what you need?
I believe so.
Okay,
yes,
thank you very much. Okay, that is the end of our information and discussion. We will now move to unfinished business, and there is no unfinished business this evening, which takes us to new business, and we have several items of new business, beginning with the middle school mathematics instructional material adoption. And
here we go.
Here we go.
Thank you. Good evening. We're really excited to support the recommendation of the new middle school math instructional materials. And in many ways, you've heard the why and the need behind initiating this adoption, particularly at the saucers in student performance data. So tonight you're going to hear more about how the recommendation best matched our success criteria, things around standards alignment, 21st century skill building, best instructional practice, and integrated technology opportunities. In particular, that last piece about integrated technology, we're really excited to showcase because we believe that this particular set of materials is sort of the first foray into true blended learning, where we have digital tools matched with print materials in unique ways. And so you're going to hear more about that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Kathy Stillwell and her team, who spent upwards of about 50 hours on this process. So Kathy, take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first I would like to introduce, Rick Baldwin, shout out, he was the parent member on our team.
Can you move a little closer to the microphone, just so we can hear?
Parent member of our team.
Great.
And then Shannon Depew, Christy Eisencraft, both teachers that you're going to hear from in a minute, and Kathy Anderson, who is our secondary instructional facilitator for mathematics, instrumental in all of this work. So the purpose of our presentation today is to request the adoption of new middle school math instructional materials, share both the process and some key components of the materials selected. This adoption process and material selection aligns with our strategic goals, as well as our performance outcomes, ensuring all students have access and opportunity to rigorous, relevant, and engaging standards-based instruction. As you have heard, our district math performance data is not at the level we would like it to be. So to address this need, a process for adoption was initiated, and a diverse team that included elementary, middle, and high school teachers and administrators, as well as representatives from district LMS, special education, and English learner departments was formed. We launched the process with this diverse team in a professional development session that started with an in-depth study of research and standards. Our district intentional focus on balanced mathematics and the 8 math teaching practices from the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics was foundational and supported all of this work. As shared at a November board meeting about instructional materials adoptions, we defined the classroom practices we were moving from the traditional sit and get to what we are moving towards, which is the more engaging, interactive, differentiated instruction in which students are reasoning and sense-making in mathematics through problem-solving and productive discourse. We connected all of this with the 21st century skills, synthesized it to create our vision, and determined what was needed to make this happen and come alive in all of our middle school math classrooms across the district. Following District Policy and Procedure 2311, we conducted an extensive, thoughtful review of materials. From an exhaustive review, 3 finalists were selected, and an in-depth field test was done with these materials. This testing was done at all of our middle schools in all of our middle school math courses, so 6th, 7th, 8th grade, as well as the compacted 6, 7, 7, 8, and 8 algebra. Students and teachers completed surveys to provide us both qualitative and quantitative data for these materials. As these materials were a shift in instruction, all teachers were trained on the 2 materials that they used in their classrooms by the publishers to ensure our testing was done with fidelity and to make sure our teachers were comfortable with the materials. Publishers returned for an additional training and presentations with the entire committee. We also held 3 open house events at Gateway Middle School and here at the CRC to collect input from community and staff members. Following this critical review and evaluation of instructional materials, we compiled the data from all of this work. That included all the appendices A through G, publisher presentations, field test input from both teachers and students, as well as looking at the nearby districts using these materials. To facilitate and expedite this analysis, we made the data visual, and these are snapshots of those large posters, and you can see they were displayed on this back wall here when we met as a team, and we spent the time analyzing. Making it visual made it highlighted very clearly that one instructional material scored the highest in all areas. As part of this process, teachers shared insights regarding their usage of materials with the committee. This was powerful, and again, one material was highlighted consistently in these messages. To share their experience and perspectives, we've invited 2 members of our team. So first, I'd like to introduce Shannon Depew, and Shannon is a middle school math teacher at Eisenhower.
Hi. You know, every teacher has that one unit that they teach every year that they just dread. And for me, it's always been 7th grade scale factor. And because we didn't have a curriculum that effectively taught the higher level thinking skills necessary for kids to meet the Common Core state standards, I found myself kind of piecing together my own curriculum. And although those materials were good, they weren't very cohesive and then ultimately weren't very effective. And when I was asked to sample the scale factor unit for the Open Up curriculum, I decided I was all in and I was going to go ahead and sample the entire unit. At first, I was really concerned that the normal discourse that I have in my classroom was going to be replaced by the sounds of fingers on the keyboard or clicks of the mouse. But I have to tell you that this Open Up curriculum is not just a one-to-one computer-based curriculum. It actually has a cohesive mix of task cards, the online applications. It also has mathematical routines and plenty of opportunities for my students to have discourse with each other. And to my amazement, at the end of the unit, nearly every one of my students had met standard. And I must say that is something that hasn't happened before. And I was just really excited about that. And obviously, this balanced curriculum was exactly what my students and I needed for them to be successful.
Thank you, Shannon. And next up, I'm going to introduce Christy Eisencraft, who's a math teacher at North Middle School.
Okay, so I was reaching the end of the deadline for sampling, and I was getting worried that a new curriculum would be just too much to wrap my head around during a busy time, something new. But once I sat down to plan it, the lesson for my 8th grade students, I was immediately impressed. They didn't feel scripted like some of the other sampling materials did, and it gave me a very complete and clear idea of how I was going to cover the lesson objective, but still be able to use my teaching style. One big standout to me was when I did a number string opener on operations with scientific notation. I was not convinced looking at it. It looked okay, but I thought, I don't think this is going to work. And it led to, it was supposed to lead to student discovery, how students could not add numbers in scientific notation the same way they multiplied and divided. And I had to stop. And I looked at my students and I said, I don't know who developed this curriculum, but it's amazing. They all figured it out. It was really kind of eye-opening that the people that developed this curriculum really have a good idea of progression of mathematical ideas connected to the state standards. And it makes it really a lot easier as a teacher to kind of follow those progressions and I guess move from unit to unit and from grade to grade.
Thank you. So another aspect of the process that was incredibly powerful and impactful was hearing from the students, the student voice in the field testing. Student feedback was collected based on our key criterion. And the first thing was hearing from the students how grateful they were to be included in the process was a really powerful, it was really impressive to, they were very articulate and they advocated for materials they found useful and interesting and made sure the ones that they thought were not so useful nor interesting. Again, these messages are from across the whole district, grades 6, 7, and 8. Comments such as, these materials were great and awesome, so helpful, thank you, in all caps, from a 7th grader. And my favorite, these materials definitely, absolutely, positively helped me understand and connect more with the math. I definitely was able to understand the task at hand and the problems, and I felt I was doing pretty good from an 8th grade student. So all of this data and hearing from our teachers and our students included in that, the choice was very clear, Open Up. Open Up is a dynamic blended, meaning there's print and online materials. It's from a nonprofit company written by Illustrative Mathematics. Illustrative Mathematics is led by and was formed by Bill McCollum, who is a lead writer for the Common Core State Standards for Mathematics. It was released as an open educational resource to ensure equity for all. It scored the highest ever for a middle school math program on EdReports. It was written using coherence and alignment and rigor called for by the Common Core. The blended model includes an online component as well as print material and a consumable per student. So why was Open Up the overwhelming choice? Why did it come up on top in every area? Well, first there's the alignment and coherence. As I mentioned, it scored the highest ratings ever on EdReports, which is looking at focus, coherence, rigor, and usability. And being co-authored by lead Common Core author Bill McCollum, the materials were indeed written with the intended learning progressions in mind, and at the core was the rigor of the Common Core, which is our balanced math model. The lesson structure of the materials aligns perfectly with our Everett Public Schools instructional models that we've built to ensure balanced mathematics is happening in all of our classrooms. Having these structures in place, as Christy just mentioned, allows us to focus on the instruction and the mathematics that we know needs to happen in our classrooms. The English learner supports were written with the materials not as an afterthought. This was done through a partnership with Stanford University, creating language learner routines embedded in each lesson. This parallels the support for special education. These, again, were not afterthoughts. Rather, they were embedded in the daily instruction structures and well supported with embedded PD for the teachers. The robust teacher, student, and parent support components were well received by community and students and teachers. Lastly, the engaging, interactive, blended materials are the materials our 21st century learners need to be successful. These are dynamic materials, meaning they are constantly being improved and updated. This is very different than adopting a traditional curriculum that quickly becomes outdated during the life of the adoption. With flexibility and the dynamic nature of these materials, we can ensure we are meeting the needs of our students in both content and in access.
Excuse me.
Bless you. To ensure success, we have planned a comprehensive implementation support, starting with intensive face-to-face training in the summer. During the school year, we will leverage online professional development for the teachers, creating a just-in-time learning opportunity for the teachers prior to each unit. This will include addressing common misconceptions as well as the mathematics and the learning progressions. So the math required to be successful and then where they're leading. What's the math that they're learning and what's it going to be supporting in future math learnings. All of this will be done with the experts from illustrative mathematics using an online platform called Zoom so that teachers can participate and have flexibility in accessing this professional development. We will also be doing our OEL labs and coaching as needed, as well as specific professional development for our special education and highly capable classrooms to fully support this implementation. In summary, we've overviewed the middle school math instructional materials review process, selection and characteristics of these materials. And finally, we are requesting Open Up be considered for adoption for our middle school mathematics courses. Thank you so much for your time, and now we would like to address any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. It's actually very exciting to see the blended piece of that and sort of very much in my mind where we moved to one-to-one where instructional adoption should be going. Directors, student representative, do you have any questions for the team?
Yeah, so I have two questions. So first, in addition to the consumable workbook and also the electronic system, is there also a conventional like textbook that's included in the curriculum, or is it just the all online?
The print is this, and so
Okay.
no, there is no hardcover static resource. Okay. This would be updated yearly, and the digital resources too. This is all online as well, but there isn't the hardcover print.
Also, so you mentioned that you considered what nearby districts are using for their instruction. Are there any other districts in our area that are using the Open Up system?
Yes. So what we did was we looked at districts nearby that had what they had recently adopted or what they were using, and then with our three finalists, who's using those, what size were the districts. And of note, this is new material, and all of the districts that piloted the material, so there was a beta testing, all of them went on to adopt it. So that was a pretty powerful message. We checked in with the different districts using them from Bellingham to Puyallup, Federal Way, so different places, and got feedback that way. Good questions.
This is exciting, especially when we looked at, saucers and wanting to kind of move this forward. Two questions. What is the actual cost of the adoption? And then are there ongoing fees that you pay on an annual basis?
So,
so the overall cost of the, the overall cost of the adoption, we think over 6 years is going to be about what we budgeted, about $690,000 to $700,000. So we anticipate about $125,000 per year on the consumables, and that may be kind of a diminishing cost with the advent of the one-on-one, one-to-one rather. So our reliance on print will obviously go down. The in the advent of the one-to-one rollout.
And meaning, as we look at future adoptions, I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, this is not my world, that much like a subscription-based model for, Office 365 or what have you, is this a subscription-based model that you pay over time, or does that even apply here?
It's not. You want to talk about the open?
Yeah, it's an open educational resource, so there's no subscription cost. It's fully accessible right now online. The link that was shared with you through the Friday report is how we shared that, and then I think in the resources for this. So anyone can access it right now. So it's open to all and accessible, so that the yearly cost is to print, because print won't ever completely go away in mathematics.
So do you need a one-to-one device to use this curriculum? I'm just thinking of the timing of getting the one-to-one devices.
When we did the field testing, it was in our middle schools with their current, what they have, which is the Chromebooks. And so that was part of it, was ensuring that how does this work with our current structure?
Mm-hmm.
It sets us up very well for when we go one-to-one, but it works as well in our current capacity, and that's because it is blended. So there is the print and the online. You don't have to be online. You don't have to be online every day or anything like that. You could certainly, you can manage it. And then the teachers shared how that worked in their classrooms. And so if the Wi-Fi goes down, if structures aren't in place, that those things that happen, it's something that can handle that without a problem.
Okay, thanks. I was forgetting the timing of getting the devices to middle school, but I appreciated the enthusiastic endorsements, perhaps, by Shannon and Christy. It's always good to hear the real life experience. And I spent some time looking at the materials online. Kind of made me want to go back to school, at least for
middle school.
Yeah.
We don't let people who are 16 go to,
Yeah, I was already in high school earlier.
No,
so.
I mean, all those sort of, you probably don't call them story problems anymore, but, those, explain this. I don't know. I thought the materials were very easy to follow. I looked at the student and the parents, and what a great resource for parents to be able to see and understand what their students are doing. And so I think expanding that ability, so the parents can help the kids possibly, and also so the students can share their learning with parents is just really remarkable. And they looked very user-friendly to me.
Yeah. And there was a comment from a couple students, but one student wrote, "My parents will be very happy," in reference to this material, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
My only comment is just like one of your last statements, but you did engage the highly capable teachers too, just because we teach math where the children are, not really where their grade is.
Yes.
And so that you did engage those fifth grade teachers that are highly capable, or even some of the schools that do have math at wherever the kid is, like Forest View, where they have math sections and teach the kid at whatever grade level they're at. But I think this is great that we've taken it down to the elementary school kids and made sure it's okay for them. So thank you for that.
And they'll be involved in all of the professional development. They've already signed, set up for the training, so that those teachers that is a challenge, having a middle school curriculum in an elementary
school. Yes.
And I'm just curious, and this is sort of a broader question as we sit here and have some maturity on the board, and more probably for myself, how long do you expect to see results? How long does it take when we were in Saucers this year and we saw some not, struggling math scores, do you implement something like this and it's amazing and next year it's all better? Or does it take, I mean, is it 3 years later that's really the reality of teachers getting traction and, with the lessons, and what does that look like?
So traditionally there is a dip when you adopt new curriculum.
Okay, that makes
Why
sense.
I think we won't experience such a dip with this is because it's so aligned to the work that we've been moving towards. It's like the materials caught up to all the work we've been doing with balanced mathematics and those instructional routines. So now the teachers aren't searching for and trying to find all that stuff. It's there, so we can really focus on the needs of our kids and differentiating for them. So optimistic me, I don't think we're going to see the traditional dip. I also don't think it's going to be magic and we're going to be, you know, off the charts in 1 year, but I do think we're going to be in, I do think.
We like high expectations. Yeah.
Yes, but what I can say for sure is that we will see balanced mathematics happening in every single middle school classroom next year. And that's going to be, that will have a phenomenal impact to our system and for our kids. So, you'll see it in the saucers.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
I hope so.
The introduction of the balanced math model, because when we started this process, we reminded teachers that this is not a panacea. The materials are tools, and the magic really happens in the hands of a skillful teacher. So we reminded them over and over and over again of that truth. And so while these are extraordinarily strong materials, and we've got some great enthusiasm and momentum here going, we know that we need a lot of instructional support as well, and then the results will come.
Yeah, I try and imagine what a new instructional material adoption looks like district-wide, where you have teachers that have been using something for a very long time, and then all of a sudden there's just something new. And I guess because it's not my area of expertise, sort of how you phase one in and phase out the other, and what that looks like district-wide when teachers get new materials.
We'll be ripping that Band-Aid right
off.
Phasing. There's
what it feels like in a classroom when that happens.
What's really great is the ground swelling came from the teachers and the work we've been doing in middle school. We did all the proficiency scaling of the standards. We wrote all the leveled assessments. So there was just it made the process, I would say, pretty smooth and easy in that they knew what they needed. And this is one of the best things to happen to mathematics education in a really, really long time, actually, at this work. And so I think there's just going to be a lot of excitement. Plus, the way it's structured and being the open resource and the accessibility, the way we can provide additional PD, we're going to be able to provide PD to the level that we haven't in the past by doing all of that. So I think it's just going to be really exciting.
One other comment about just having these folks be sort of the lead blockers for the rest of us trying to figure out how to do math well in a completely digital environment. I think, again, that phase, and they've got the luxury of not over-relying on one modality over the other, but phasing that in over the next 3-4 years. And so that's exciting to us. Yeah.
Lead blocker. I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us and giving your testimony tonight as teachers as well, and for having a parent here tonight. We appreciate it greatly. And with that, we move this to second reading. Correct?
If that's what you wish, that's what we will do.
We will move this to second reading. Okay. That takes us to our next new business, which is the opposition of new voucher program for military-connected students. And I believe Dana Riley-Black is going to give us an overview of that.
All right, I'll give you some context.
Thank you.
So in March 2018, Representative Jim Banks, Republican of Indiana, and Senators Ben Sasse, Republican Nebraska, and Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina, introduced the Education Savings Accounts for Military's Families Act of 2018, purpose to create private school voucher programs for students with an active duty parent in the military. Opponents argue that if passed, this act would redirect already limited funding from the Impact Aid program designed to support public schools that serve military-connected students, as well as Native students and other students who are impacted by the presence of federal lands. Instead, a few military-connected students would be eligible for a $2,500 voucher known as an education savings account that they can use at a private school, online school, summer camp, after-school programs, or homeschooling. Opposition analysts report this voucher scheme will undermine the public schools that will continue to serve the majority of military-connected students in the United States, but now have fewer resources to do so adequately. The American Association of School Administrators provided members an alert advising administrators about the proposed legislation and encouraging contact with federal representatives. A draft letter to federal congressional representatives has been included in your materials for this meeting. The board's legislative representative requested that the board be provided with an opportunity to review the letters and determine whether to send the letters from the board president, the legislative representative, or the superintendent.
And so, yes, this was brought to my attention, and I'll just give you a little bit of background. Being the child of Navy parents, they retired or were discharged before I entered school. So I was not a school-age military child, but going to college in Tacoma, seeing military children down there, being here in Everett, where we have lots of military children too. But at the same time, this is public funds that are already going to a strapped public schools, being used for private reasons. And for that, I wanted it to come to our vote. Really, do we want to support the opposition? So that what we'll be doing is supporting the opposition that as Everett Public Schools, school board, or superintendent, that we want to make sure that public school money stays for public schools and does not get funneled into private voucher systems. And so it's a question for us to discuss how we would like to move on this, if we want to do something at all.
So does Impact Aid provide funds to public schools? Is that, okay.
Takes that funding away from us.
Yes. Yeah.
But it says it takes away from Impact Aid, so I assumed Impact Aid provides.
So districts qualify for Impact Aid based on the presence of federal lands and kids. We don't, because there aren't enough youngsters enrolled in our schools to cross the threshold. Bremerton, Central Kitsap.
Or Tacoma, one of the districts down there they've got a school on the base, I think, that's public school for one of the districts.
Right, Clover Park would be one that would be impacted because of the presence of the stations, naval stations in the base, with lots of kids enrolled, qualify for a lot. Port Angeles, for example, has a Coast Guard station and tribal lands, and qualifies for some. Not a lot, but some. We qualify for none. This is about whether or not want to join formally the opposition to another attempt at vouchers at the federal level. One that essentially would draw from what really is an important but fairly narrow program to help schools that are impacted by naval, Army, Navy.
How do military families feel about it?
I don't know what they say, but I imagine it's probably what a lot of parents that you hear in, especially if they are in a failing school, because some of those high military, because of transientness, I mean, I don't know the outcomes of those schools, but it is that desire for choice and that somebody else needs to pay for their choice. Some of that voucher system mentality that's out there, especially at NSBA. I heard conversations from public school board members about other states where vouchers are very prominent, and that it is about choice for failing schools. Instead of putting public funds into improving those failing schools.
And so is there a recommendation here? Or?
I think there's I think the question is, do we want it to come from the superintendent? And then I don't know if we need to vote for that or if it's just a mutual agreement.
No, the way we wrote this after...
My computer's broken. So.
That's okay. After Tracy and I talked about it was to put it in front of you to see whether or not you all want to do it. And our assumption was that if you want to do it, you all wanted to sign it. You don't have to all sign it. You can have one of you sign it. Board president, typically. You could decide you don't want to do it at all, and I can act individually as the AASA member. It's entirely up to you, really.
Wenta, you have any thoughts?
You know, I struggle with the whole voucher concept, and if I'm in a failing school, if I'm a parent, I would want choice. We're fortunate that we're not able, I can support the letter, and I can support the letter coming from the board, but I would be less than honest if I didn't say I was conflicted at times about that. Because I think we're fortunate we're in a very strong district with very high student achievement. But if I were in another part of the country where that was not the case, I might feel differently. I mean,
I think it would sound better if it came from us. And if all these school boards come around.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
So do you want us to note it, mark it as approved by general consent, or would you like
Yes.
to have a okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. We can do that.
Okay. Thank you, Dana. Okay. Next, we have, I believe, Mr. Fleckenstein up to review 3 policies, beginning with Policy 2124, Digital Citizenship and Media Literacy.
Well, good evening. Policy 2124, Digital Citizenship and Media Literacy, is a proposed new policy for the board's consideration this evening and was drafted using the WASDA model policy in response to RCW 28A 650045. Upon review of this RCW, the legislature's stated intent recognized that as technology becomes more prevalent, students must learn how to safely, ethically, responsibly, and effectively use technology. With this law, the legislature also intended to provide a process in which students, parent guardians, teachers, school employees, and community representatives would engage in an ongoing discussion on the safe use of technology, internet use, digital citizenship, and media literacy as part of implementing the state's basic education goal. Key outcomes contained in RCW 28A 650045 and reflected in the new proposed policy include an annual review of district policy and procedures on electronic resources and internet safety, involvement of students, parents, and staff, and community with experience or expertise in digital citizenship, media literacy, and internet safety issues, a customization of policy and procedures on electronic resources and internet safety, and then a consideration of best practices, resources, and models of instruction in digital citizenship and media literacy. To date, much of the work referenced in state law and in this proposed new policy has been undertaken by our LMS team using the ISTE Student Technology Standards, and is also an integral part of our integrated technology plan. In addition, it's embedded within the trainings provided to our staff as we continue to implement one-to-one technology in our schools. As you can see in the proposed new policy, in the purpose statement, there is a reference to the work in Everett Public Schools systemically that students apply 21st century skills and foster their critical and creative thinking skills to prepare them for college, career, and life readiness. The proposed new policy, 2124, Digital Citizenship and Media Literacy, has been reviewed by Legal Counsel, Policy Review Council, the Technology Advisory Council, and the Superintendent's Cabinet prior to tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Directors, do you have any questions regarding new policy 2124?
I appreciate the annual review. I think it's just, with any digital policy, it's just filled with trappings. So as far as updating it and staying up to speed on this.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, general consent, we'll move it to second reading. And next policy, 3300. Updates.
Right. The proposed revision to policy 3300 corrective actions are minor in scope and proposed to the board this evening to provide a clear understanding of what defines corporal punishment. Although the existing language in this policy clearly states that the district shall not use corporal punishment as a means of discipline, it did not include a definition of what constitutes corporal punishment. Upon recommendation from legal counsel, the proposed revision for this policy includes a definition of corporal punishment as an act that willfully inflicts or willfully causes the infliction of physical pain on a student. And that particular definition is derived from WAC 392-400-235. Proposed revisions to policy 3300 corrective actions have been reviewed by legal counsel, the Policy Review Council, and the Superintendent's Cabinet prior to tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Directors, any questions regarding the definition of corporal punishment? Okay, hearing none, we'll also move this to second reading. And policy 4314, visitors and or disruption of school operations.
Yeah, revisions to this policy are provided to the board tonight for consideration and stem from an update of the WASDA model policy related to associated student bodies and a review of our policies and procedures this year related to school safety. The purpose of this policy is to ensure the orderly operation of the educational process and the safety of students and staff. Updated language in the proposed draft further define our expectations for school visitors, in addition to providing clear direction to staff about how to respond in the event that a visitor causes a disruption to the school environment. It also identifies the authority to contact law enforcement for assistance if needed to ensure a safe environment. Proposed revisions to policy 4314, visitors and or disruption of school operations, has been reviewed by legal counsel, the Policy Review Council, and the Superintendent's Cabinet prior to tonight's meeting.
Any questions on policy, excuse me, policy 4314?
Clarifying question, because I'm guessing this isn't just during school hours. It could be after school events and such things. Today, there was another story in the news about suspicious looking people, police getting called, and them being talked to. How can we make sure that in our goals to be inclusive, in our goals to keep everybody safe, that if our staff is not at risk by approaching somebody who might be Native American visiting a college or Black while being at Starbucks, that we approach that person, ask that person, talk to that person before law enforcement, our very last statement down there, gets involved. I mean, these are some very overt acts that are listed here, but it's what has been in the news recently. What I hear are non-acts. And so I'm just wondering, how do we protect our staff at the same time we protect our reputation and our ongoing efforts of inclusiveness?
Absolutely. And so the language provided in this policy, it states that the staff member in charge of the superintendent, whoever is the administrative authority on the premises, must first direct a person to willfully leave under their own power prior to the contact of law enforcement. And that's stated very clearly in that very first sentence.
I saw that. I just wanted to make sure that that was the intent and purpose.
Yes.
So thank you.
I think also, as I read through this, all the disruptions are actually actions or something that someone's doing that is pretty obvious when you read sort of what they would have to, they're either interacting directly with the student or they've come to school in altered state or something else. Any other questions?
I just had a comment on the last paragraph. I felt it was the language that says the superintendent or staff member in charge shall direct the person to leave immediately. is redundant to what is stated right after disruption of school operations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you've already asked them to leave for these reasons. And then this says if such a person refuses to leave, shall direct the person to leave, which has already been done,
Mm-hmm.
and or call for assistance. So
suggesting like removing the superintendent or staff member in charge, because it's,
Yes.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
It just seemed redundant to me.
Step one is the superintendent or staff member, and step two is to call law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you would say, shall again direct the person to leave immediately or something.
I can edit it either way for you. What would the board prefer?
You're picky? Sorry.
No, I think it's a good catch, actually.
The clause, correct? Or do you want? So we'll just remove from the first shall to
Shall call for the assistance of a law enforcement officer.
Yeah, because that's what it is. You've assessed the situation. It is appropriate for law
Asked.
enforcement to call.
change that for second reading.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now on to our upcoming agenda items, which we have several. Dr. Cohn, can you please give us an overview?
I certainly can. The item 14.1 is a special meeting. It's your WASA Region 109 Awards Ceremony. Ability to have three of you there. It's an annual event that we do at the Everett Golf and Country Club.
Did you offer specifics on timing? I had 11:30, but is that when arrive sort of after 11:30 with lunch at noon, or is it be there before 11:30 because it starts?
My calendar says that we start at 11:30, so I would get there for sit down at 11:30. I would arrive to be able to sit down at 11:30. We are served. Or serve
Buffet.
ourselves,
It's usually
or serve
buffet.
ourselves, and then the process unfolds. So
Okay.
I'd get there a few minutes before 11:30. Hey, Joyce?
Thought the program
Isn't that
started at noon.
That's what I remember.
Like you arrive at 11:30 and the program starts at noon?
Yeah.
You get your lunch and...
Molly?
The social
Or-
time and stuff, there's like
Yeah.
always the people are mingling and stuff for
Yeah.
time, so.
Sally, remember?
Sorry, it's not.
I think at 11:30 is when people
Oh.
get their food, and
Yeah,
and so it takes a little while before
yeah.
the program starts.
Yeah.
Because I think we do it by table or something,
Yeah.
however we do it. So
Okay.
I would be there at 11:30.
Great, thank you.
We'll probably get there a few minutes before. What we can do is we can double check the timing of the thing. We can send you a little note. Would you like that?
If it's different.
Yeah.
Then just
Good point.
arrive at 11:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Otherwise,
we'll send you a note if it's different from arrive at 11:30.
Yeah.
Okay. 14.2 is a special meeting on May 15. It's your high school enrollment growth options meeting at, oh, you're going to ask me the cycle again, aren't you? I don't think we,
That's Cascade.
the first one's Cascade. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then the next item is May 17. It is the second high school enrollment growth option, and I believe that one's Everett.
Yeah.
And then the next week is going
Later.
to be Jackson.
Yeah.
Or
Jackson's the plan.
2 weeks later. Thank you. The item 14.4. We don't. I'm just looking at this, and we're not. When they're outside the building on these notices, we're not putting the location in. So I think what we'll do is we'll change this format so that we've got locations here if they're different, because we're not telling you where it is on this particular item. May 22 is 14.4. That's your next regular meeting. You've got strategic progress monitoring. 3 items. We've got a little bit of a pile up there. You've got progress to graduation for the class of 2018. You've got post-secondary enrollment patterns, and we delayed your strategic plan update from this meeting to that second meeting. You've got a second reading for math instructional materials for middle school, and my expectation would be we'll put that in the in the consent agenda? Okay. And then you've got first reading for science core. Well, you got science, you got Spanish, you got, and then second reading on 3 policies. So you got a couple more narrower scope adoptions for first reading. You've got a water. You have a student representative selection. So the committee's done its work. You're going to receive a recommendation, and then you'll decide whether or not you're going to approve that.
Which school are we at this time?
Cascade.
Thank you.
Right? And then you've got, we think, a legislative funding outlook based on whether the information we think is solid enough to do that for you at that meeting versus another one. And you've got a number of consent agenda items that we've listed in there. So that's what that meeting looks like. It too will be fairly packed. You also have an item that you just decided you want on there today, which is a process for naming North. But since we hadn't talked about that before this, we wouldn't have it in there. So
I need to be
we'll put that in there. Yeah, action. It'd be an action item. Well, we can make it an action item. We can make it an information item. We'll present a process to you, and you'll tell us whether you like it. If you want to approve it formally, we'll put it in action. Would you like it in your action items?
Process, and then
right.
We want to tweak it. So
write a report first so we could have a chance to
typically
take a look at it.
Well, I mean, you can put it on your agendas twice. You can have it at the first time around at your May 22 meeting and make some adjustments if you like, and then you can bring it back for approval at your June meeting. I don't think a couple of weeks makes a difference, frankly. Yeah. Is that what you'd like to do?
I don't know that this is really time sensitive. I mean, if we have a packed meeting,
yeah,
this could be something that we could push out a month, probably.
Oh, to your June meeting? We could put it in June. Okay, sure. So those are the upcoming agenda items.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see, section 15.0, executive or closed session. We do have an executive session tonight. It will be for the purpose of reviewing the performance of a public employee and to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party. The executive session is expected to last for 45 minutes. There will be no action taken following the executive session.
Right, Jerry? No action? No action. That's what I thought.
So at this point,
right,
directors, we will move to the
recess to the Silver Lake room.
Silver Lake room.
And Madam President, I will stay for the first item, but then recuse myself.
Okay.
There are actually 2 in there.
Okay. Yeah. First 2 items.
Before the
there's
other.
3 items total.
Yeah.